Chapter 671. The Fickle Heart of the World *** The Novel, Ire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. After parting with Zhu Shi, Gu An's life once again fell into tranquility. He delved into creating a Dao, but this path was exceedingly arduous, always causing this Dao extreme Daluo immortal to rack his brains. Time flew by swiftly. Another 100,000 years passed by. In this year, the Taiqian dynasty launched a surprise attack on the Dao court, igniting the flames of war in the human world. In the Tai-Tsang dynasty, within the imperial garden of the palace. While pouring wine for Guan, Li Xiandao lamented that Taiqian is truly formidable, daring to launch an attack on the Dao court. Whether successful or not, the courage of Taiqian's son of heaven is enough to command my admiration. Taiqian is the strongest dynasty in the world. Although the Tai-Tsang dynasty has not been annexed by it, they can still feel its tiger-like might. If it weren't for the feud between Taiqian and the Dao court, Li Xiandao believed Taiqian would eventually march towards the Tai-Tsang continent. Guan toyed with the jade statue gifted by Li Xiandao, smiling as he said, "What, does your majesty also wish to emulate Taiqian?" He had once visited Taiqian for leisure, and from top to bottom, Taiqian was infused with a belligerent spirit. The reason for waging war against the Dao court was not due to any grudges but was a means to achieve a dominion through borrowed animosity. Behind Taiqian stood numerous powerful sects, which was the source of their confidence. In the coming years, both sides would engage in fierce battles for thousands of years, turning the world dim and chaotic until Zhao Rushan led the Dao court to suppress Taiqian, ascending to the seat of the master of the Dao court. Thus, the primordial era came to an end. Following this began what would be known as the Ancient Era, a period far more prolonged than the primordial era. The final battle of the Ancient Era would plunge the human world into desolation, ushering in the Ancient Period. Gu N's gaze could see far into the distant epochs, even glimpsing the Tianyuan period from which Ji came. However, the future Tianyuan period was already vastly different from the Tianyuan period of Jis origin. Yet Ji was bound to be born. If he didn't exist, the memories he imparted to Gu In would be illusory. To say I don't wish to emulate is false. As an emperor, who doesn't want to unite the world? But the Dao court is too strong, and without certainty of victory, I won't lead the people of Tai-Tsang to their deaths. Li Xiandao shook his head and said. Currently, he had reached the cultivation level of a carefree primordial immortal. Although he couldn't compare to the disciples of Wushi in terms of training speed, he was still considered fast in the world. The two talked about worldly matters, occasionally mentioning Li Ye, Yang Jian, Long Teng, and others. Nowadays, the person Li Xiandao valued most wasn't Yang Jian or the prince, but Long Teng. As the son of Long Qing, and now the patriarch of the Long family, Long Teng had grown up, his cultivation reaching the realm of a divine immortal of wondrous dharma. He symbolized the highest talent of the Tai-Tsang dynasty and was a world-renowned peerless prodigy. Li Xiandao curiously asked, "By the way, I've always wanted to ask, Long Teng's cultivation speed is getting faster and faster. Even Yang Jian is amazed. Is it you secretly nurturing him behind the scenes?" A divine immortal of wondrous dharma, being the 6th level of the immortal Dao, can roam the outer heaven. Reaching the realm of a divine immortal of wondrous dharma before 1,000,000 years old is a once-in-billion talent. Guan raised his wine cup, smiling, "See through it but don't reveal it." He did indeed quite like Long Teng. Often, he would transform into someone else to be near Long Teng. For Long Teng to have reached today was largely thanks to his Dao intent. When Long Teng cultivated, his Dao intent would envelop him, aiding in his enlightenment. Regarding this, Long Teng was still unaware. In fact, though Gu An's Dao intent could assist others, it was more about giving them a gentle push. If Long Teng had extremely mediocre comprehension, even if he used Dao intent daily to assist, he wouldn't have nurtured him to his current achievements. Li Xiandao, upon hearing this, grew even happier and started inviting for more wine. The two drank for a full 2 hours before Guan finally took his leave. Watching Gu N's departing figure, Li Xiandao couldn't help but ask, "Guan, how much longer can such days last?" 100,000 years to him was extremely long, especially since he was an emperor, facing far more partings than ordinary people. He had even seen off many descendants, with the court's ministers changing batch after batch. Only when facing Gu En would his heart calm down, feeling that some things could not be erased by time. The most heartless place is the house of royalty, and Li Xiandao had thoroughly become a lonely soul. Gu En raised the jade statue in his hand, saying, "Until you grow weary of it." Watching him suddenly disappear, Li Xiandao couldn't help but shake his head and smile, softly murmuring to himself, "How could I ever grow weary?" His expression gradually became complex. He didn't stand up, continuing to sit at the wine table, lost in thought. After leaving the Taizong dynasty, Gu En appeared above the sea of clouds, strolling forward. The human heart is ever-changing ultimately. Gu En sighed. As for Li Xuando's life, he did not wish to interfere too much. Li Xiandao had been emperor for too long. When the expansion of the Taizong dynasty halted, internal conflicts would break out. He had once executed rebellious royal family members, which increasingly distanced him from the royal family. Meanwhile, Li Ya and Li Lingtian had long roamed the world, never returning. When Gu En didn't find him, he would always stay in the bedchamber or the imperial study, either cultivating or reading. Not only Li Xiandao, but other old friends also faced life's predicaments, which were more mental than situational. The path of immortal cultivation is long. When one cannot break through year after year, the fighting spirit weakens, and the thoughts become chaotic. Ambitions and emotions intertwined were as complex and uncontrollable as hearts in the mortal world. Even for them, Gu En occasionally felt restless, particularly when his path of creating a Tao was not going smoothly. For this reason, Gu En liked to travel across the world, visiting major sects and imperial dynasties. The diverse beings always helped to quickly calm his Tao heart. The reason for finding Li Xiandao to drink today was because his path of creating a Tao finally showed progress, and he was in high spirits, seeking a friend to drink with. Li Ya was busy with carefree vendettas, making it difficult for Gu En to find him, so he could only find his father. When Gu En met Li Xiandao, he was still very weak. Thus, when he saw Li Xiandao, he could remember the lost feeling of weakness, a sentiment that couldn't be provided by friends made after becoming strong. Soon, Gu En disappeared above the sea of clouds. He arrived at Xiaolan's grotto heaven, switching with his avatar. Xiaolan was about to emerge from seclusion. Since returning from the path of the great Tao, her cultivation growth had slowed. Even after being in seclusion for 100,000 years, there was no hope of a breakthrough, which made her heart quite agitated. "Brother Gu!" The voice arrived before the person. Gu En, who was admiring the flowers and grass, was about to turn when Xiaolan pounced on him. Xiaolan, without a word, attempted to kiss him and strip his clothes. Although only the two of them were in the grotto heaven, such roughness was unprecedented for Gu En. Several days later, Xiaolan stood up from the grass, tidied her clothes, looked into the distance, and sighed, "Brother Gu, I suddenly feel I'm not a true genius, as I'm starting to encounter bottlenecks too." Gu En stood up with her, gazing at her profile, and asked, "How about we spar a bit?" Xiaolan turned to look at him, and slightly shook her head. "Brother Gu, I don't need to regain confidence by defeating you. Even if I beat you many times, my Tao practice would not grow because of it," Xiaolan said, a nostalgic look crossing her face. If battling powerful enemies on the path of the great Tao, when the fight ended, the Tao spiritual qi would surge in her, allowing her to rapidly increase her cultivation level in a short time. That feeling was truly wonderful, and she still yearned for it. "Who said I want to lose to you?" Gu En's voice interrupted Xiaolan's thoughts, causing her to meet his gaze. Xiaolan was stunned. It was the first time she had seen Gu En's expression so serious. She pouted slightly. "What? Do you want me to go easy on you?" Gu En stared at her, whispering, "Even if you give it your all, you can't possibly beat me. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 672 Primordial Tao Emperor. Seeing that Guwen didn't seem to be joking, Xiao Lan felt puzzled, but she had her own pride and didn't want to concede just yet. Sar the novel, F.I.R. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Then let's do it. Xiao Lan raised her hand and beckoned to Guwen with the demeanor of a master. The corners of Guwen's mouth turned up. With a gentle shift of his right foot, the entire world suddenly changed. The celestial vault turned dim, the flowers and grass on the ground vanished, and an endless wilderness appeared beneath their feet. This sudden change in environment caused Xiao Lan's face to change drastically. She looked around, feeling that everything around her didn't seem like an illusion. What is going on? She turned to look at Guwen and cautiously asked, "Are you really my brother, Gu?" Guwen laughed. "Laner, think carefully. Are you really sure about my origins? Since you became sensible, I have been at the Xiao Manor. Before coming to the Xiao Manor, did you know who I was? Who are you?" As she listened to Guwen, the uneasiness in Xiao Lan's heart disappeared. As long as Guwen was still him, she wouldn't be afraid. Guwen drew out the Cyan Hong sword, gripping the sword scabbard, and said, "First show me your full strength." A gleam flashed in Xiao Lan's eyes, and her figure flickered. Boom! Xiao Lan appeared out of thin air in front of Guwen, holding the white spirit sword. The sword's tip was only 10 centimeters from Guwen's shoulder. The ground beneath them shattered, countless debris flew up, as if the world couldn't withstand the pressure and was collapsing. Yet, this mere 10 centimeters, Xiao Lan was unable to advance any further. Her pupils suddenly dilated, not expecting Guwen to be so formidable. Guwen, holding the sword scabbard of the Cyan Hong sword, pushed forward. Xiao Lan felt an overwhelming force like a tidal wave crush towards her, and she uncontrollably was pushed far away, disappearing at the world's end like a sharp arrow. Along the way, Xiao Lan shattered dozens of massive mountains, leaving a long trail of dust and rock floating in the air, an especially magnificent sight. Xiao Lan quickly emerged from the swirling dust, not looking the least bit disheveled. Around her was visible chi force, her eyes filled with fear as she looked in Guyen's direction. At that moment, she had a terrifying feeling as if facing death. The earth and mountains quaked violently, raising a dust storm that covered the sky. Amidst the vast dust waves was a figure rapidly ascending. Unmistakably, Guwen. Xiao Lan could feel Guwen's gaze. She no longer cared why Guwen was so powerful. She immediately raised her sword, and soared intense sword to the sky, sword shadows appearing around her, rapidly increasing and expanding their range. In the blink of an eye, the sword shadows covered thousands of miles around. An endless sea of sword shadows rose along with Xiao Lan's sword, resembling a cluster of stars heading toward the cosmos. The sword chi formed tails like the rise of auroras, splendid to the extreme. Xiao Lan swung her sword at Guwen, and the sword shadows from all directions followed suit. Every sword shadow unleashed sword chi that shook heaven and earth, unstoppable. The ground trembled, the celestial vault ripped apart. In this overwhelming sword chi, everything appeared fragile. Guwen did not use any divine skills. He flew straight toward Xiao Lan. Speed increased dramatically, like a bolt of lightning, tearing through the sea of sword chi between heaven and earth, making it seem as though the celestial vault was split in two. Clang! Xiao Lan's white spirit sword blocked Guwen's sword scabbard, and at that moment, she felt her chi blood surging, extremely uncomfortable. She looked at Guwen and found his expression so indifferent, his eyes devoid of any emotion. Such an expression deeply provoked Xiao Lan. She leapt, disappearing in front of Guwen, and reappeared behind him. Xiao Lan summoned 72 large flags, quickly surrounding Guwen. Almost instantly, a formation was set, and thousands of thunders erupted, intertwining around Guwen. Guwen slowly turned around, and as soon as the lightning was about to touch him, it vanished directly, creating an unapproachable area around him. Xiao Lan's expression changed slightly. She stored the white spirit sword into her storage pouch and cast spells with both hands. The lightning changed color, transforming into purple thunder like dragons or snakes, crazily attacking Guwen. The formation's light also surged, illuminating the entire world. Is this all you can do? Gu An's voice echoed, causing the fighting spirit in Xiao Lan's eyes to surge. Boom, boom, boom. The world roared, the land continuously shattered, rocks soaring into the sky, and the dim celestial vault began to warp, seemingly unable to bear such a massive battle. An hour later, amidst the ruins, Xiao Lan half knelt on a large rock, one hand gripping the white spirit sword to support her body. Her hair was disheveled, her robes torn and dirty, looking extremely bedraggled. She struggled to lift her eyes and saw Guan descending from the sky, hovering in front of her. In comparison, Guan seemed untouched by the battle. There wasn't a speck of dust on him, nor any sweat or bloodstains on his face. "How is my strength?" Guan asked. Xiao Lan pouted, "Very strong, I can't beat you." After the shock, she felt somewhat aggrieved. A few days ago, everything was so sweet, yet today he was so stern. Guan smiled and said, "As long as you can defeat me, you can become a Taoist emperor. I can teach you cultivation." Upon hearing this, Xiao Lan looked at him, struggled to stand up, and asked, "Have you been to the path of the great Tao?" "I've been there." "Then why did you pretend to be so curious when I talked to you about the path of the great Tao before?" Xiao Lan said with a grievance, feeling as if she'd been toyed with. Guan said, "I went there in a past life. Everyone has their past life, you do too. If you wish, I can help you restore your past life memories now." Xiao Lan furrowed her brows and asked, "What realm are you exactly? Why are you hiding your cultivation level? Are you?" She wanted to ask if Guan was sincere with her, but felt it was a question she couldn't voice. Guan smiled, "I can't tell you my realm for now. When you exceed me, you'll know. As for hiding my cultivation level, it's because I don't want to cause trouble. I like peace and quiet. You should understand my nature. As for whether I'm sincere with you, you needn't doubt it. When I went to Xiao Manor back then, it was for you." Xiao Lan furrowed her brows even more. She was no longer the innocent girl she once was. She only appeared naive in front of Guan. "Is it because of my past life?" Xiao Lan asked. Guan nodded. Xiao Lan fell silent. Hearing her inner voice, Guan said comfortingly, "Regardless of past or present life, you are you, only with different memories. If I cared only about your past self, I would have restored your memories long ago." Xiao Lan took a deep breath and asked, "Can you help me become a Taoist emperor?" Guan landed in front of her and answered, "I can, but I can also guide you on another path, one not inferior to becoming a Taoist emperor." "What path?" "Primordial Tao Emperor." Xiao Lan's expression changed. She hadn't heard of this title, but just from the name, it seemed extraordinary. She couldn't help but ask, "Is the Primordial Tao Emperor also a level of destiny?" Guan smiled. "That's right, the path to becoming a Primordial Tao Emperor is different from the Emperor Road. It is not through killing, but through comprehension. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 673, The Legend of the Emperor of Eternal Life. If I become the Primordial Tao Emperor, can I defeat the Taoist Emperor? Xiao Lan asked the question she was most concerned about. In the years of roaming on the path of the Great Tao, she had witnessed too many prodigies, all of whom were merely competitors of the Taoist Emperor. She couldn't imagine how truly powerful the Taoist Emperor was. Guan replied, "Whether it's the Taoist Emperor or the Primordial Tao Emperor, it's just a boost of destiny. None is absolutely stronger, but becoming the Primordial Tao Emperor, your future will be limitless." This wasn't just idle talk from him. The Primordial Tao Emperor was a path he had forged, and he could use his power to grow infinitely stronger. Sooner or later, the Primordial Tao Emperor would surpass the Taoist Emperor. Becoming the Primordial Tao Emperor would not only evoke Guan's power of the Great Tao but also allow enlightenment in Guan's Tao. The name Primordial was derived from Gu in being the primordial Tao creation body. The title of Tao Emperor was simply meant to match the prestige of an emperor. He was inspired by Ji Xiaoyu's title of Reincarnation Tao Emperor. One day, he would make the primordial Tao Emperor a more formidable existence than the Taoist Emperor. Not only his disciples could become the primordial Tao Emperor. Of course, that was a far-off future, as his creation of the primordial Tao Emperor was still ongoing. Currently, it was just in the first stage which could attract people to the Tao. Xiao Lan pondered for a moment and said, "Anyway, you won't harm me. I'm willing to become the primordial Tao Emperor. Teach me." Guan smiled, waved his right hand, and Xiao Lan's injuries instantly healed. Her mana was restored to a full state, and the entire dim world suddenly transformed back into the appearance of a grotto heaven. This scene made Xiao Lan's eyelid twitch, and she couldn't help but ask, was it an illusion realm just now? No, it was the real world created by me. Guan's answer made Xiao Lan secretly alarmed. What level of realm was required to achieve such a degree? Sit down. Guan lifted his robe and sat down, gesturing for Xiao Lan to sit as well. Once Xiao Lan sat down, Guan began to teach directly. Sur the Navire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The Taoist Emperor requires fighting and devouring great Tao destinies on the Emperor Road of the Great Tao. The final victor can become the Taoist Emperor. For the primordial Tao Emperor to rival the Taoist Emperor, it must also have an accumulation process. Guan did not intend to let the Tao seekers slaughter each other like raising poisonous creatures. He thought of his lifespan holograms, lifespan reincarnation, and the innate reincarnation skill. He planned to have the cultivators pursuing the primordial Tao Emperor gain enlightenment in reincarnation, not a personal reincarnation, but a projection of will into reincarnation. It would exist in reality but would ultimately be annihilated. It wouldn't disturb the great Tao but could absorb its true essence. With this direction, he could better perfect it going forward. Xiao Lan soon became engrossed in Guan's teachings. The grotto heaven remained calm, with a serene beauty undisturbed by time. In the misty immortal court, within a vast golden hall, hundreds of youthful cultivators gathered, and Tian Hao was among them. Many surrounded him, chatting, resembling stars arching around the moon. I finally got the qualification to compete for the Taoist Emperor. In a million years, it'll be our turn. Time is pressing. Tian Hao is truly remarkable. He hasn't even surpassed attaining the free immortal of Taoist song, yet he has the qualification to compete for the Taoist Emperor. I heard that the ancestor values him highly. Don't be overly joyful. The road to the Taoist Emperor is arduous. We might end up killing each other. The disciples of the misty immortal court in the hall discussed matters of the Taoist Emperor. Tian Hao remained silent, recalling the words of the elder who announced the Taoist Emperor matter. He always felt that the elder was watching him with ill intent. Although he had integrated into the misty immortal court, he wasn't born there, so he always had a barrier in his heart, preventing him from fully trusting anyone. Speaking of the Taoist Emperor, our misty immortal court has produced many Taoist emperors throughout history. Do you know which Taoist emperor had the highest talent? The words of a young man in blue clothes caught the attention of many, prompting Tian Hao to turn his head. The blue-clothed man reveled in the attention. He cleared his throat and said, "Naturally, it's the Emperor of Eternal Life from Jinlan Immortal Mansion." Born with the immortal emperor's eye, he shocked the entire immortal court. Perhaps unmatched talent brings misfortune. Heaven is fair, so evil exists to covet his immortal emperor's eye. Breaking into the misty immortal court, it cost his parents' lives. To protect him, the misty immortal court sent him to Ling Mountain. The Emperor of Eternal Life inherited the true teachings of Ling Mountain and was the heavenly Buddha ancestor's direct disciple. He was unbeatable once he embarked on the path of the Great Tao, becoming the Taoist Emperor in an incredibly short time. The Emperor of Eternal Life. The Immortal Emperor's Eye. Tian Hao had heard of this name, said to be a supreme genius from long ago. He had heard several seniors use the Emperor of Eternal Life to pressure talented disciples. However, when asking about more deeds of the Emperor of Eternal Life, they were warned not to inquire too much. The Emperor of Eternal Life seemed to be a taboo within the misty immortal court. Why did such a powerful emperor of eternal life die? Someone asked, puzzled. The blue-clothed man mysteriously said, he didn't die from being killed. Even legendary immortal gods couldn't do anything to him. He entered the river of cause and effect for his beloved. Whether he truly perished remains unknown. In fact, many ancestors within the court anticipate his return. It's said that Ling Mountain occasionally sends disciples to the river of cause and effect for training, likely orchestrated by the heavenly Buddha ancestor. The Emperor of Eternal Life was the heavenly Buddha ancestor's most cherished disciple. The heavenly Buddha ancestor, being a supreme presence beyond the great thousand world, still longs for the Emperor of Eternal Life. Imagine his extraordinary talent? At these words, the surrounding disciples nodded in agreement, beginning to fantasize about the Emperor of Eternal Life. Even Tian Hao couldn't help but wonder about the elegance of the Emperor of Eternal Life. Wait, how do you know so much? A female disciple suddenly asked, prompting everyone to look at the blue-clothed man with odd expressions. Those who knew the blue-clothed man felt even more puzzled. The blue-clothed man maintained a smile, though it became increasingly eerie. Because I've met him and assisted him. The blue-clothed man said proudly, making those around him have even stranger expressions. Tian Hao sensed something and frowned, silently retreating. Suddenly, the blue-clothed man exploded into a black mist, quickly spreading out, causing surrounding disciples to retreat while holding their magic artifacts defensively. Little ones, I am the profound demon emperor under the Emperor of Eternal Life. I am also a Taoist emperor. Today, only one among you can survive, and the survivor will have the qualification to compete for the Taoist emperor. The voice of the blue-clothed man resounded, but his tone turned chilling. Rumble, the entire palace began to tremble, and Tian Hao's expression changed dramatically as he felt an overwhelming suppression from outside the hall. They had no way to escape. What was going on? Was it an enemy invasion or an arrangement by the misty immortal court? Tian Hao took out his 3 Dao treasures and watched the black mist vigilantly, faintly catching the silhouette of someone walking within it. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 674. Projecting the Path of Creation, Profound Demon Emperor. In the Taoist field of the beginningless, Guan, lying under a tree reading, murmured this name. Having inherited the memories of the Emperor of Eternal Life, he naturally remembered the Profound Demon Emperor. The Profound Demon Emperor was the most capable underling of the Emperor of Eternal Life, helping him to manage the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect and search for Fairy Yaoxian. However, ever since the Emperor of Eternal Life ignored the Profound Demon Emperor's obstruction, insisted on leaving the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect to find Fairy Yaoxian, and even injured the Profound Demon Emperor, the two bid farewell forever. Unexpectedly, after so many years, the Profound Demon Emperor was still alive. He calculated that the Profound Demon Emperor was invited by the Misty Immortal Court to create crises for this group of talents, forcing them to fight each other, only for the Misty Immortal Court to step in and chase him away. The Misty Immortal Court is not an evil sect. Letting disciples kill each other is unacceptable, as these disciples come from different immortal mansions, and their kin are within the court. If they engage in mutual slaughter, a storm will surely arise, potentially bringing about power shifts. Guan couldn't help but sigh. Indeed, darkness exists everywhere. With Tian Hao's current ability, even with the reliance on a Dao treasure, it would be difficult to survive till the end. The talents within that palace are not weak. The disciples of the Misty Immortal Court did not listen to the words of the Profound Demon Emperor but instead began to jointly attack him. The Profound Demon Emperor's cultivation level had reached the heaven-opening Daluo Immortal Realm, which this group of talents could not contend with. Soon, all the talented disciples were suppressed. The Profound Demon Emperor unleashed his divine skills, isolating time and space, so even if 1,000 or 10,000 years passed here, only a few breaths' time would pass outside, plunging the disciples of the Misty Immortal Court into despair. Eventually, someone couldn't contain themselves and began attacking their fellow disciples. Once someone took the lead, the slaughter naturally erupted. Tian Hao did not actively participate in the slaughter, carefully avoiding other disciples, yet someone still sought him out. The misty immortal court seemed to receive some kind of stimulus, intensifying the cultivation of its disciples, wishing to nurture combat power more swiftly. The reason behind this, Guan couldn't compute. If there's something he couldn't calculate, 9 out of 10 times it relates to the celestial court. Though the misty immortal court isn't within the Great Thousand World, it's reasonable to speculate that it got involved due to the celestial emperor's struggle within the celestial court, as many immortal gods have emerged from the court. Guan had no intention of interfering. Though Tian Hao wasn't the strongest, he was destined to survive. Because Tian Hao was a reincarnation of the Son of Heaven, those of great power in the misty immortal court would remind the profound demon emperor. Indeed, as Tian Hao was severely injured, the profound demon emperor intervened to send him away. This great battle persisted within the divine power illusion realm for quite some time, yet in reality, it was but an instant. Seeing Tian Hao unharmed, Guan then withdrew his gaze. He was not only reading but also condensing the fortune of the primordial Tao Emperor. To have the primordial Tao Emperor exist, one must create a truly existent fortune that cultivators could obtain and control. For this, he projected his lifespan 5 times to comprehend the path of Chi Fortune. Sir the Nellfire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Every projection of his lifespan would manifest his reincarnation body in the celestial spirit great world. Fortunately, these reincarnation bodies didn't leave a renowned legacy, but became a psychological shadow of defeat for some of the absolute geniuses of the era, unforgettable for all eternity. Each lifespan projection required millions of years, and after using it 5 times, Gu An's path of Chi Fortune stepped into a brand new realm. Sure enough, things are easier with cheats. Guan thought to himself, after 5 lifespan projections, condensing the fortune of the primordial Tao Emperor was no longer difficult. This process not only advanced the cultivation of the primordial Tao Emperor, but also saw a growth in his own cultivation level. Guan continued to indulge in books and immerse himself in creating fortune. It wasn't until dusk fell that he stood up. He walked toward the peak where he lived, lifting his right hand. Streams of air circled his palm, supported by the wind, resembling water currents with a fiery sway. This was the fortune of the primordial Tao Emperor. Seemingly gentle, but actually imbued with the fierce strength of the path of power. Guan pondered repeatedly and decided to embed the characteristic of fierceness into the primordial Tao Emperor. The primordial Tao Emperor, renowned for mighty power. Just thinking about it was exhilarating. With a foundation of greater strength, the primordial Tao Emperor, cultivating different great Taos, could achieve various creations and directions. By the time Guan reached his courtyard, the fortune of the primordial Tao Emperor in his hand was solid, twisting like a dragon or serpent. Shen Zhen, sitting in meditation in front of the artifact refining cauldron, turned to look. Guan then dispersed the fortune in his hand. "What was that thing in your hand just now?" Shen Zhen curiously asked. Guan smiled. "Just a little spell. You've been sitting here for 1,000 years, aren't you going out for a walk?" He deliberately leaked a trace of the primordial Tao Emperor's aura to Shenzhen, intending to lead her into the path in the future. Lately, Shenzhen encountered a bottleneck in comprehending the path of cause and effect, not even venturing into the mountains and rivers, but sitting in meditation in front of the artifact refining cauldron all day. She chose to sit here because there was a Tao treasure containing the path of cause and effect within the artifact refining cauldron. Don't tell me that appropriate relaxation aids enlightenment. I don't believe it anymore. Shenzhen glared at Guan, puffing her cheeks as she spoke. Guan indeed didn't dare say such things again. Having met with a bottleneck when creating the Tao before, the discomfort was indeed unbearable, thus he chose to open up a little. After chatting for a while, Guan returned to his house alone. Next, he prepared to contemplate where to place the path of proving the Tao for the primordial Tao Emperor. One couldn't always require coming before him to become the primordial Tao Emperor, that would limit its development too much. The Taoist emperor placing the Emperor Road on the path of the Great Tao was a fine guide. The path of the Great Tao, being the convergence point of the 3,000 Great Taos, had no rules, not even the celestial court couldn't control it, granting cultivators more freedom. He could also position the path of proving the Tao for the primordial Tao Emperor on the path of the Great Tao. Let's call it the Primordial Emperor Road. Adding 2 more words to Emperor Road, making it more appealing. Guwen didn't act immediately, choosing to continue projecting his lifespan. This time, he intended to enhance the great Tao of creation, to turn what shouldn't exist into reality, and have it exist for a long time. The great Tao of creation was most crucial. No creation could be done without the great Tao of creation. Once again projecting toward the 3,000 great worlds, Guwen was already experienced, uninterested in the process, only waiting for the result. Snowflakes flew, covering the vast mountains and rivers of the Qiankuan sect. In a great hall, I Ching Shan, Lin Chen, and other high-ranking leaders of the Qiankuan sect surrounded a remarkably handsome yellow-robed disciple. This person was Yuan Luo, the reincarnation of Chaos Grudge Luo. Today, Yuan Luo had proven himself as the world's foremost genius, also the pride of the Qiankuan sect. Did you gain anything from this visit to the Tsangming Profound Sea? I Ching Shan asked with a stroked beard and a kind face. Having watched Yuan Luo grow up, I Ching Shan felt Yuan Luo was his greatest pride in life. As for Tian Hao, he was, after all, from the beginningless, while Yuan Luo was entirely cultivated by the Qiankuan sect, unrelated to the beginningless. The others also smiled approvingly at Yuan Luo, becoming more and more satisfied with him. Hearing the hierarch's inquiry, Yuan Luo's face turned grim, and he said through gritted teeth, "I was defeated by someone whose cultivation wasn't even higher than mine." The hall fell silent with this statement. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 675. All beings are equal, accepting disciples. How is that possible? Could you have been deceived? Even if they could defeat you, their cultivation level must be higher than yours. Could it be some elder monster in disguise? An elder frowned as he spoke, and his words gained the support of others. They all believed that Yuan Luo couldn't possibly lose to an opponent of the same realm. I Ching Shan also frowned. He believed that Yuan Luo's judgment wouldn't be wrong. He could sense Yuan Luo's setback, and Yuan Luo had been traversing the world for many years and had indeed lost to elder monsters before. Yuan Luo took a deep breath and said, "I can confirm his cultivation level is not as high as mine, but I am unsure of his origins and do not know his name." The elder's consolation only made him feel worse. He was a proud person who disliked failure, but he disliked even more when others denied his failure. The high-ranking members of the Qiankuan sect listened in silence. Has another peerless prodigy emerged? They calmed down and thought it might not be impossible. Especially with Taiqian and the Tao court currently at war, the destiny of heaven and earth evolving, and great powers declaring that the time for an era change in heaven and earth had arrived. In such a season, the birth of beings with greater talent might not be impossible. Moreover, given the boundless vastness of heaven and earth, the Qiankuan sect is but a drop in the ocean. If the Qiankuan sect can give rise to a talent like Yuan Luo, why can't more prosperous places give birth to even stronger talents? I Ching Shan spoke, "Don't overthink it. Win next time, or perhaps, I could recommend you go to the beginningless for cultivation?" Upon hearing this, Yuan Luo shook his head and said, "I don't want to go. I just want to rely on myself, and I still have a long way to go. If I reach the end and see no hope, then I'll seek other paths." I Ching Shan didn't insist, but he found it strange in his heart. Yuan Luo's resistance to the beginningless seemed excessive, yet Yuan Luo had never spoken ill of the beginningless. Other elders began to encourage Yuan Luo, hoping he wouldn't be disheartened. Faced with everyone's concern, Yuan Luo accepted each one, appearing very humble. He was arrogant to outsiders, but his reputation within the sect had always been good. This was why the Qiankuan sect was willing to support him at all costs, and his colleagues were proud of him. After chatting for quite a while, Yuan Luo finally took his leave. After he left, the elders finally expressed their true feelings. They found Yuan Luo's defeat inconceivable and even birthed worries because of it. No need to worry, currently in the sect, he is not the only world-class talent, and with the beginningless, we will not fall behind in terms of talent, Gu Changxing said. His words gained everyone's approval. Centuries of companionship were enough for them to trust the beginningless. Yi Qingshan followed up. The world situation is turbulent. Tell the people within the sect to be cautious and avoid entanglements with Taiqian and the Dao court. We cannot support either. Qiankuan sect must follow a path of self-reliance. Whether it be the Taiqian dynasty or the Dao court, behind them are numerous eternal transcendent forces, making them more like allies. The Qiankuan sect's development is not as advanced as theirs, but each step is very solid, and the top level is still composed of their initial members. After receiving the orders, the elders began to discuss the world situation. The Taiqian dynasty's offensive is fierce, nearly reaching the Dao court's mountain gate, causing an uproar throughout the land. People realized the Dao court was no longer the undisputed world ruler, which led many ambitious individuals to start scheming. The Dao court's territory is vast, and its foundations are deep. Even a small piece is enough to make a sect soar. 1,000 years later, Emperor Tianhong returned to the Taoist field of the beginningless. He came immediately to visit Guan. Master, the person you asked me to mentor, he has died. I failed to protect him. Please punish me. Emperor Tianhong knelt behind Guan, his expression dejected. An Exen who led the way couldn't move upon hearing these words, standing still to ascertain to whom Emperor Tianhong referred. Guan was inside the pavilion writing a secret manual, his back to Emperor Tianhong, and said, "No matter, dead is dead. I only asked you to teach him, didn't expect you'd spend so many years before returning." That person was the reincarnation of the Tai immortal monarch. Under Emperor Tianhong's guidance, his cultivation progressed rapidly. Unfortunately, he died at the hands of a great power from the Taiqian dynasty. Even Emperor Tianhong couldn't stop it and had to rely on the power of a Dao treasure to protect himself. Having spent so many years together, Emperor Tianhong developed deep feelings for Tai. His heart filled with grief and self-blame. He even hoped Guan would seek revenge for Tai, but he restrained himself, knowing that his master had no obligation to intervene. In his eyes, his master didn't meddle in worldly affairs, only acting when faced with external threats. To the master, all living beings under heaven were of equal standing, and the master wouldn't favor anyone. Tai's death was ultimately a personal vendetta. He insisted on competing with talents from Taiqian for heavenly materials and earthly treasures, resulting in the intervention of the opponent's support. Emperor Tianhong also made a move, but the opponents were numerous, and he couldn't prevail. I didn't expect to mentor for so long and ultimately develop compassion, Emperor Tianhong sighed. Tai was his first disciple, and after spending so much time together, he inevitably became attached. Guan turned to look at him and said, "Cherish the feelings this experience brings you. As for Tai, he will reincarnate." Really? I clearly saw him utterly obliterated. Emperor Tianhong's eyes lit up as he asked excitedly. Guan smiled without speaking, leading Emperor Tianhong to speculate it was his doing, engendering feelings of gratitude within him. "Thank you, master." "Thank you, master." Emperor Tianhong began to kowtow, exceedingly joyful. Guan looked at him with a silent sigh. Although he had awakened some memories of the immortal gods, he was still far from becoming a true immortal god. Go and cultivate. As for Tai, I won't prevent you from encountering him again in the future, but you need not actively seek him now, Guan said. Hearing this, Emperor Tianhong felt even happier, hurriedly thanking Guan, then stood up, bowed to an Exen, and vanished from the spot. Master, could that person called Tai really be the reincarnation of the Tai immortal monarch? An Exen approached Guan and asked softly. Yes, it's him. Aren't you afraid they, as two immortal gods, might collude? Rest assured they won't. Guan answered casually, casting a satisfied glance at his writing. An Exen inquired, Master, do you think I could also take a disciple? I haven't truly taken a disciple before and want to experience being a master. Don't worry, I won't go out. I'll choose a disciple from within the Qiankuan sect. Guan shot her a glance and said, You may take only one. And Xen was overjoyed and giggled, Thank you, master. Rest assured, I won't carelessly choose. The disciple I take will certainly please you, and they won't bring shame to the beginningless. Guan raised his hand to ruffle her hair, smiling, In truth, aptitude doesn't matter. If you meet a disciple you're fond of and they're willing to accept you as a master, don't worry too much. Chapter 676. Wuxi's Third Generation, Destiny Fulfilled. After Guan agreed that an Xine could take on disciples, she eagerly headed to the Qiankuan sect. However, Enzin's standards were extremely high, and after going through the Qiankuan sect, she didn't find anyone suitable. Regarding this, she was not in a hurry, prepared to wait through the long years. She would either not accept disciples or accept one who would be the strongest among the third generation of Wushiji disciples in the future. Although the third generation of Wushi has not yet appeared, the Wushiji disciples have already begun to prepare eagerly. The once-in-millennium sparring already couldn't satisfy them, especially after the Blood Prison Great Saint and an Xine took the lead. Other disciples began to contemplate other ways to surpass them. Guan not only had strong personal strength but also his ability to cultivate disciples was evident to all, and naturally, the disciples wanted to emulate him. Upon hearing that an Xine was allowed to take disciples, other disciples in the dojo also approached Guan, hoping to take on students. Currently, aside from an Xen, only Celestial Demon Child, Celestial Scion, Tian Bai, Blood Prison Great Saint, Ghost Mother of Ephemera, Emperor Tianhong, Shenzhen, and Jiang Shi remained in the dojo. Chen Chuan, LV Xian, and Sheng Tian had not returned until now. They had already established sects outside and could only occasionally come back to visit. As for the competition among the disciples, Guan did not intervene, as long as it wasn't malicious competition. After all, in the long years, there needed to be some fun to pass the time apart from cultivation. Time passed in a flash, and another 10,000 years went by. An Xen still hadn't taken any disciples, and because of this, the other disciples were not in a hurry either. They adhered to the rules secretly, as an Xen was the senior disciple, and her disciple should be the leading disciple among the third generation. Moreover, they required a standard. Being the first to take a disciple would easily become a reference for others. With so many geniuses in the world, who could guarantee their disciples would be the strongest? But if others had already taken disciples, they could make comparisons. In these 10,000 years, Guan had performed 6 lifespan projections, making his achievements in the Great Tao reach an exceedingly high realm. On this day, right after the Spring Festival, Guan came alone to the vast path of the Great Tao. The path of the Great Tao was vast and boundless, not in the form of a cosmic plane. It was lush and flourishing, with countless branches, each containing different Tao rules. The part of the path of the Great Tao he arrived at was considered the main trunk. The 3,000 Great Tao formed one vast Qi Sea, within which were continents and meteors, with no visible signs of life. Looking towards the overseas part of the Great Tao, darkness made everything here seem small. This time, Guan came to pioneer the primordial Tao Emperor. He hovered in the void, above the Qi Sea of the Great Tao, his heart-eye capable of seeing incredibly far distances. He saw some people searching for treasure, some trapped in Tao dilemmas, some fighting for the Taoist emperor, and some facing life and death separations. Not only the human race and demon race but also many other races existed, some not even in the form of living beings, resembling souls or stars. All things fell into Guan's eyes, and even as a Tao extreme Daoyuo immortal, he felt the boundless creation. Those who could tread the path of the Great Tao had already become immortals, detached from the mundane world, each entwined with endless karma, as if a world became a speck of dust upon entering the path of the Great Tao. Guan's gaze turned to a farther place. The 3,000 great worlds lay under the path of the Great Tao, and the path of the Great Tao connected many mysterious planes, including the primordial Emperor Domain, Misty Immortal Court, Ling Mountain, among others. Upwards from the path of the great Tao was chaos, and nothing could be seen, but Gu An's divine sense could reach into it, which meant there were planes above, he just couldn't explore them yet. Sir, the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Gu An withdrew his gaze and began to create the destiny of the primordial Tao Emperor. Creating destiny would not cause a great commotion. For the destiny of the primordial Tao Emperor to truly establish, it would take long years to develop. Rather than say he was creating destiny, he was in fact creating a kind of great Tao, allowing it to exist in the path of the great Tao until discovered by cultivators. Notably, Yang Xian's Sacred Heart Sword Tao was also a kind of destiny. The Sacred Heart Sword Tao would persist with the river of Sword Tao, allowing cultivators to draw upon its power, just like a Taoist emperor and a primordial Tao emperor. It's just that Yang Xian's cultivation level wasn't strong enough. There's no denying that Yang Xian's comprehension was truly terrifying. Without using lifespan evolutions, he could reach this step, even though he wasn't stronger than the celestial spirit god. Before Gu An entered the golden immortal Tao fruit realm, creating such a sword Tao was very difficult. But Yang Xian was him, and Yang Xian's greatness was his greatness too. As he complemented himself in his heart, he continued creating. His Tao intent formed streams of airflow around him. Before coming, he had already constructed the destiny structure of the primordial Tao Emperor. Now only the final step was needed for it to be born. Soon, these streams of airflow converged to form a gray mist studded with countless golden stars, still swirling around Gu An. He raised his right hand and pointed in a direction, and the destiny of the primordial Tao Emperor surged that way. During the surge, this destiny gradually gained color, resembling a rainbow, but quickly becoming more vivid than a rainbow. Gu An watched as it drifted far away. Only after it merged into the great Tao destiny and disappeared without a trace did he vanish as well. He didn't return directly to the celestial spirit great world but visited other great worlds, even going to the primordial emperor domain and misty immortal court. Each time he went somewhere, he would erase his karma and aura. After several hundred back and forth trips, he finally returned to the celestial spirit great world. At this moment, it was still afternoon, with a bright and sunny day. Gu An went to the Gathering Flower sect and met with Jiang Qiong. Upon hearing Gu An's message, Jiang Qiong immediately set aside everything and came to meet him, even having her disciples prepare immortal brew and immortal food. The two met in a small pavilion on the mountain top, outside of which a vast sea of clouds resembled an earthly fairyland. Did something happen? Gu An asked with a smiling face, naturally aware of what Jiang Qiong faced. His direct call for her was also to help her out of a predicament. Upon hearing this, Jiang Qiong's smile faded, she furrowed her brows and sighed. It's still the Taiqian dynasty and the Tao court causing trouble. Taiqian is rallying all the sects and dynasties to divide Tao court's territory. Before Taiqian breaks Tao court, whatever territory the sects get will forever belong to them. But if they wait until Taiqian breaks Tao court, Taiqian will confiscate all the land in the world. The elders of our sect also want to get involved, but I don't think Taiqian will win. Why won't they win? Gu An asked. Jiang Qiong gave Gu An a sidelong glance and responded with irritation. Because the Taizong dynasty still exists, the Tao court won't annex the Taizong dynasty, but Taiqian will. Gu An smiled helplessly. I have long been unrelated to the Taizong dynasty. The evolution of worldly affairs is not something I will interfere with. Really? Jiang Qiong didn't believe it, and her inner voice made Gu An give her a glare. Gu An fake coughed and said, I have an opportunity here. If you can grasp it, the Gathering Flower sect might become as strong as the Tao court in the future. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 677. The Visage of an Old Friend. What opportunity? Jiang Qiong's eyes lit up with curiosity, and she asked eagerly. She trusted Gu and wouldn't deceive her, so she already began looking forward to the future of the Gathering Flower sect. Gu An said, the great Tao encompasses 3,000 paths, Besides qi absorption for immortal cultivation, there are many aids. I have an opportunity in hand called the Primordial Tao Emperor. By achieving the Primordial Tao Emperor, within the same realm, no one can defeat you. You will find it easier to attain enlightenment than other cultivators. Of course, becoming a Primordial Tao Emperor is no easy task. I can only provide an opportunity. Success depends on your efforts and fortune. Primordial Tao Emperor? Hearing this name, Jiang Qiong was instantly excited. Just from the name, she felt it was formidable. Gu Wen then waved his sleeve, and a gust of clear wind brushed Jiang Qiong's face, causing her to become slightly dazed, her consciousness floating into the great Tao. The initial opening of the Primordial Tao Emperor requires not only time but also Tao seekers. The more people comprehend it, the stronger it becomes. Destiny inherently needs to spread. Every living being carries the creation of the great Tao, which they cannot perceive, but when they move toward a certain goal, the creation aligns with that target, forming an intangible, imperceptible destiny. The more beings pursuing the Primordial Tao Emperor, the faster its destiny grows. This process also aids Gu An's Tao practice. Of course, he can also transmit his power to all cultivators through the Primordial Tao Emperor, complementing each other. While Jiang Qiong was immersed in the creation of the Primordial Tao Emperor, Gu Wen began drinking wine. He decided to conceal the fact that the Primordial Tao Emperor was his own creation. Even his disciples wouldn't know the truth. Jiang Qiong was just the beginning. Gu Wen would lead those he cared about into the Primordial Tao Emperor. Of course, if someone didn't want to become a Primordial Tao Emperor, he wouldn't force them. But he thought no one could refuse to become a Primordial Tao Emperor. Just like the attraction of the Taoist Emperor to the world, cultivators find it hard to refuse additional power to enhance themselves. Thus, in the years that followed, Gu Wen transmitted the destiny of the Primordial Tao Emperor to his disciples, old friends, only saying that the Primordial Tao Emperor was a destiny rank different from the Taoist Emperor. Just as he anticipated, no one refused to become a Primordial Tao Emperor. When dealing with Li Ya and martial resolution, Gu Wen didn't appear in person but allowed them to encounter the opportunity to become a Primordial Tao Emperor in a serendipitous manner. This made both extremely happy, thinking they had found the greatest opportunity in the world. Through the destiny of the Primordial Tao Emperor, they sensed the vastness of the great Tao, even feeling their souls had transcended the great thousand world. To truly become a Primordial Tao Emperor, reaching the stage of soul projection is required, where the cultivators need to resonate with the great Tao. That is a high level of achievement, a process in which Gu Wen would not assist them. If the Primordial Tao Emperor were chosen by his will, it could never surpass the Taoist Emperor. On the path of the great Tao, in a void space, a man in red with white hair was treading a sword, his features handsome and posture upright, like an immortal monarch wandering the void. His name was Fang Xian, a heaven-encompassing free immortal. Suddenly, his face turned pale, and he couldn't help raising his hand to clutch his chest, showing a pained expression. Damn it, I survived the celestial spirit great world, and after merely tens of thousands of years, I am to die on the path of the great Tao? Heaven, you truly love to toy with me, Fang Xian thought bitterly. Not long ago, he encountered two prodigies battling over the Taoist Emperor. Because he stayed to watch, one of them secretly attacked him, cursed him with bad luck, and left him in great distress. He had just managed to become a heaven-encompassing free immortal. He also aimed to be a Taoist emperor. Yet, before setting foot on the Emperor Road, he was about to die. His heart filled with confusion, he couldn't help but think of the battle between the battle court and the supporting Tao sword venerable back then. He thought he had great destiny for surviving under the supporting Tao sword venerable. Now it seems it was indeed just good luck. On the path of the great Tao, his talent wasn't extraordinary. He was even defeated by contenders for the Taoist emperor in the profound Yuan free immortal realm. Looking back on his life, he was a renowned genius of the battle court since childhood, yet he had never done anything worth boasting about, always failing. He once found comfort in the idea of poor timing, but now? Fang Xian's eyes gradually dimmed, his mana roiling within, painful memories surfacing that he wished not to recall. He flew towards a nearby meteor. Upon landing, disregarding the flying sword, he staggered to a mountain wall, sat against it, and tried to meditate and cultivate energy. Peef, a mouthful of black blood spurted from his mouth, splattering on the ground and turning into scalding black smoke as it dissipated. He spat not only blood but also his Tao practice. They were fragments of his Tao fruit. Esya the novel, the NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. His Tao fruit was shattering. Fang Xian was unable to cultivate energy. He leaned back against the mountain wall, his head drooping. At this moment, he looked so weak, but such scenes were not uncommon on the path of the great Tao. He remembered the dead head seen before. He once admonished himself to be cautious, never to follow in their footsteps. But he never expected. Fate was already before his eyes. Fang Xian's lips curled, revealing a self-mocking smile. Suddenly, a light appeared before him, capturing his attention. He instinctively looked up and saw a light at the end of the cliff ahead. For some reason, he felt compelled to see that light clearly. He was dying anyway. He couldn't die so disgracefully. If he were to die, he would die standing. Fang Xian took a deep breath and forced himself to his feet, walking shakily forward. He was only a few dozen feet from the cliff's edge, yet it felt like a lifetime's journey. When he finally reached the cliff's edge, his chin was stained with black blood, his entire being appearing miserably tragic. At the cliff's edge, he finally saw the existence within that light. A piece of silver crystal, like a fragment of some creation, emitting light while rotating. "This is," Fang Xian murmured. As he recognized the silver crystal, his spirit condition surprisingly improved somewhat. He involuntarily raised his hand to touch the silver crystal. When his fingertip made contact with the silver crystal, a strong light burst forth, engulfing him in an instant. Supreme Sect, Third Medicine Valley. Under an old tree, Guan, transformed into a middle-aged cultivator, was playing chess with the nine-fingered divine monarch. Even though he had left the Supreme Sect for hundreds of thousands of years, because his sword intent atop the heaven-repairing platform had yet to disperse, many still came in pursuit of the supporting Tao sword venerable. Emperor Tianhong once came in the past. The Supreme Sect might not have been a top sect in the world, but its fame was immense. Gu and his eyes slightly changed as he placed down the chess piece in his hand, somewhat surprised in his heart. Unexpectedly, this person has such fortune. Guan sensed someone stepping into the primordial emperor road of the primordial Tao emperor on the path of the great Tao. This person had some causal ties with him, being a cultivator from the battle court whom he had spared in the past. The cause and effect on the path of the great Tao are complex, especially concerning such destiny ranks as the primordial Tao emperor. Guan couldn't discern who in the future would become a primordial Tao emperor, so Fang Xian's success came as a surprise. It's truly a case of fate playing tricks, turning foe into friend. Sitting opposite Guan, the nine-fingered divine monarch stared at the chessboard, his brows furrowed tightly. He occasionally glanced up at Guan, then back at the board, thinking deeply. After a while, the nine-fingered divine monarch looked up at Guan and said, "This fellow Taoist, you remind me of an old friend." Guan chuckled and asked, "Who?" The nine-fingered divine monarch stood up, walked to the side, turned his back to Guan, and stroked his beard sentimentally, saying, "He was someone who disappeared almost 400,000 years ago. His chess skills were second only to mine. I see his style in you." Guan glanced at the board and internally scoffed. Is he trying to take this chance to end the game? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 678. The Rise of the Emperor. The nine-fingered divine monarch began recounting his past with Guan, leaving out Guan's name entirely and altering many parts of the story. Guan sat in front of the chessboard, patiently listening to the nine-fingered divine monarch boast. His thoughts drifted to the Supreme Sect. Currently, the Supreme Sect's sect leader is Yizong. Under his leadership, the Supreme Sect has developed excellently, growing stronger year by year. The alliance between the Supreme Sect and the Taizong dynasty has proven effective, with both sides brimming with zeal. Guan considered releasing the inheritance of the heaven-splitting axe. The inheritance contained within the heaven-splitting axe was long negligible, but the sword intent imparted by Guan was so powerful that no one could lift it. After laying the groundwork for hundreds of thousands of years, it was time to bestow the true inheritance of the heaven-splitting axe. Guan infused it with a special primordial Tao Emperor fortune, doing so without drawing any attention. As Guan had predicted, after finishing his story, the nine-fingered divine monarch wanted to drag Guan to the old residence of a deceased friend, ignoring the chess game he was about to lose. Thinking of how many times the nine-fingered divine monarch had lost to him, Guan let it slide. For the time being, Guan observed Feng Xian while dealing with the nine-fingered divine monarch. By the time he left, no one knew that the supporting Dao sword venerable had ever returned. Sar the Oval Fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The war between the Dao court and the Taiqian dynasty finally concluded, with the Dao court gaining the upper hand. After Zhao Rushan slew the Taiqian son of heaven, the Taiqian dynasty unraveled, descending into chaos akin to the human purgatory. This lengthy war, spanning many years, resulted in countless casualties. As the Taiqian dynasty's fortune dispersed, a blood mist lingered over the Taiqian land, refusing to dissipate for a long time. By slaying the Taiqian son of heaven, Zhao Rushan became renowned across the world, relinquishing the title of prodigy to become a hero recognized by all. Simultaneously, the spiritual energy between heaven and earth began to strengthen, birthing more creations, making immortal cultivation increasingly accessible. Time flew by. 50,000 years had passed since Guan infused the path of the great Tao with primordial Tao Emperor fortune. The Taiqian dynasty became an ancient legend in the human world, with a significant increase in free immortals. The limits of prodigies becoming increasingly exaggerated and the world's order growing more intricate. Within the Dao court, in Xiao Lan's grotto heaven, Guan accompanied Xiao Lan in cultivation while examining his attribute panel. Name, Guan, lifespan, 445, 492/31, 076, 970, 562, 704, physique, primordial Tao creation body, cultivation level, perfect Taoist great Luo immortal realm. His lifespan was growing steadily, but it was still far from 1,000,000,000 years. Guan planned to attempt a breakthrough after reaching 1,000,000,000,000 lifespan. Though the variables invading the celestial spirit great world were increasing over the years, none posed any threat to him, so he remained unfazed. These variables were normal. Any powerful great thousand world would attract visitors from outer heaven. The celestial spirit great world, while not yet strong, was in a phase of rapid development, attracting beings from other great thousand worlds and dimensions to explore opportunities. The Taiqian dynasty was supposed to perish within a few thousand years but was extended by visitors from outer heaven for 10,000 years. Of course, it wasn't just the Taiqian dynasty that had help from outer heaven, the Dao court did too. The master of the Dao court, Yuan Songzi, originally hailed from another great thousand world. Xiao Lan opened her eyes, gazing at Guan and sighed, "Brother Gu, I still can't achieve the level of projection, it's too difficult." Although the primordial Tao Emperor doesn't require fighting like the Taoist Emperor, the difficulty is no less. Guan sat on a tree, playing with the 7-star mirror, smiling. Precisely because it's difficult, it proves its strength. Why rush? You have plenty of years to try. Xiao Lan took a deep breath and curiously asked, "Brother Gu, how many years did it take you to become a primordial Tao Emperor?" "About 1,000,000 years. Guan replied casually. Hearing this number, Xiao Lan felt relieved yet despaired. 1,000,000 years. Even if her talent was greater than Guan's, wouldn't it take her at least 500,000 years? She felt a bit exhausted. She stood up and said, "Brother Gu, how about we go out and have a look around?" Guan jumped down from the tree, pocketing the 7-star mirror, and walked toward Xiao Lan. "What's so good about that mirror that you always carry it with you?" Xiao Lan couldn't help but ask. Her divine sense once peeked at the seven-star mirror but found nothing unusual about it. Guwen replied, "I'm the only one who knows its value." Xiao Lan rolled her eyes. Luckily, the mirror hadn't become sentient, or she would have been more suspicious. Guwen accompanied Xiao Lan out of the grotto heaven, his attention once again focusing on the path of the great Tao. That Fang Xian had actually succeeded in projection. This guy had an extraordinary comprehension on the primordial emperor road. Guwen eagerly anticipated his achievement of primordial Tao emperor status. A primordial Tao emperor needed someone to showcase its splendor. Defeating a Taoist emperor would have even more impact. On the path of the great Tao, atop a meteor, Fang Xian sat in meditation on the edge of a cliff, his red clothes fluttering and white hair flowing. His eyes were closed and his head trembled slightly. Gradually, his brow furrowed, as if enduring some pain. After a long time, Fang Xian suddenly opened his eyes, his pupils trembling as if awakened from a great dream, his emotions out of control. He tried hard to calm himself and showed a look of joy on his face, murmuring to himself, "Is this the creation of the primordial Tao Emperor? I haven't truly undergone reincarnation, yet I possess memories of reincarnation. Whether it's imagination or reality remains unknown. If true, the comprehension method of the primordial Tao Emperor is too incredible." On the path of the great Tao, he mostly heard about the Taoist emperor. Although there were other fortune levels, none could compare to the Taoist emperor. The primordial Tao Emperor was different. The mere hundreds of reincarnation memories he received just now left him astounded. He could feel that the real time had not passed for so long. If he could undergo multiple reincarnation enlightenment sessions, his cultivation breakthrough speed would exceed the previous method. With this thought, Fang Xian's heartbeat began to quicken. Primordial Tao Emperor. I never heard of it before. Even if other primordial Tao emperors exist, they must be few, far fewer than the Taoist emperors. This will be the greatest opportunity of my life. Fang Xian's excitement grew. He closed his eyes, carefully recalling the insights from his prior reincarnation experiences. At the same time, in another void space on the path of the great Tao, a black-armored lion demon arrived beneath a great tree. His form was humanoid yet burly, his head retaining the original shape, with a mane reaching his waist, exuding a strong sense of oppression. He raised his right hand, reaching towards a silver crystal floating beneath the tree branches. "What is this?" The black-armored lion demon muttered, eyes full of curiosity. He was not alone. With Fang Xian's successful enlightenment, the path of the great Tao gained hundreds of silver crystals, scattered across various void spaces. Most were quietly awaiting those with fate, while some, like the black-armored lion demon, encountered them soon after their appearance. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 679, New Momentum. The Dark Void, a mass of purple clouds floating in front of a bright full moon, with a cliff standing above the clouds, where an old man in a white robe is sitting. He has white hair and a youthful face, with two halos floating behind his head, constantly changing colors, beautiful and mesmerizing. He opens his eyes, pinches his fingers to calculate, his expression becomes strange. He begins to continually deduce, but unfortunately, no matter how he deduces, he cannot unlock the confusion in his heart. A figure suddenly appears behind him, a celestial god dressed in blood armor, with a terrifying aura, white hair fluttering, and a blood flower imprint on his forehead. It is the celestial destruction god. He has another identity, known as Long Mie, the grandson of Emperor Longxin. The celestial destruction god bends and raises his hand, saluting the old man in white, saying, "Master, your disciple has come to see you. How many years has it been? You have finally come. It seems you have successfully refined a dharma body for that entity." The old man in white speaks, his tone calm. The celestial destruction god replies, "Duty calls. The celestial mandate cannot be violated." The celestial mandate cannot be violated? Indeed, it cannot be violated. The old man in white stands up, turns to look at the celestial destruction god, gazing up and down, with a look of gratification in his eyes. Your Tao practice is not bad, proving you haven't wasted your time. You're not unworthy of my cultivation. The old man in white strokes his beard and smiles. The celestial destruction god responds, Master has cultivated more than just this disciple. Without Master, I would have died long ago. The old man in white shakes his head, turning to gaze into the dark void, while the celestial destruction god looks at him intently. See Teach Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Disciple, your talent is extraordinary, possessing gifts that even the immortal gods find hard to match. From now on, you need not restrain your desire for slaughter. The old man in white says softly, reflections of great explosions flickering in his pupils. The celestial destruction god frowns upon hearing this and asks, Do you think it is already that time? Even if it hasn't arrived, you must prepare in advance. The changes in the great Tao are becoming increasingly complex, and the struggles within the celestial court are growing fiercer. Who can say how much disaster lies within, and what it will ultimately evolve into? The old man in white sighs as he speaks. The celestial destruction god remains silent for a moment before saying, I am not prepared to rely on the talent left by the Long family. The Long family should disappear. I will only cultivate steadily. The old man in white glances at him, saying meaningfully, It seems someone from the Long family still lives, and you've gained a burden. The old you couldn't wait to be free of restraints. The celestial destruction god replies, Indeed, some still live, but they have cut ties with the past. I simply do not wish to follow the old path of the Long family, growing stronger through slaughter. To me, that is not the righteous Tao. Hearing this, the old man in white chuckled, shifting his gaze back to the void. Before returning to the celestial court, take a trip along the path of the great Tao. There is new fortune born there. What exactly it is, you shall explore for yourself. The old man in white instructed. The celestial destruction god agreed, saluted him, and then vanished from the spot. Only the old man in white remained on the cliff, standing in front of the bright moon, his figure appearing desolate. Who will be the next celestial emperor? Is this truly just a battle for the celestial emperor? The old man in white muttered to himself, with no one able to answer him. He was questioning himself. Taoist field of the beginningless. Another 10,000 years have passed since Feng Xian's first reincarnation projection successfully appeared. The human world has ushered in a new prosperous age, with the 100 sects vying for supremacy, yet neither the Qinkuan sect nor the Supreme sect, despite their strengthening, were able to enter the ranks of the 100 sects of the world. Over the years, besides daily life, Guan is most concerned with the fortune of the primordial Tao Emperor. Currently, over 300 cultivators are pursuing the primordial Tao Emperor along the path of the great Tao. More than 1,000 have encountered this opportunity, some perishing in the recent 10,000 years, others giving up on this opportunity. Generally speaking, having over 300 cultivators striving for the primordial Tao Emperor, this destiny is considered to be formed. Although the primordial Tao Emperor does not seek quick strength through victory, the reincarnation projection speeds up cultivators' advancement, possibly resulting in the emergence of the first primordial Tao Emperor within hundreds of thousands of years, which piques Guan's curiosity. Who exactly will it be? Feng Xian was the first to begin, but new talents have emerged along the path of the great Tao, with momentum surpassing his. As for the Tao seekers in the celestial spirit great world, they were all acquaintances of Guan. Their natural abilities did not match the prodigies of the path of the great Tao, and Guan would not show favoritism towards them on the primordial emperor road, as they almost certainly could not become the first primordial Tao Emperor. On this day, within the Taoist field of the beginningless, Guan plays the flute while watching the celestial battle in the sky. He creates a barrier field, allowing the blood prison great saint and an Xian to engage in combat, with Shenzhen, the celestial demon child, celestial scion, Tian Bai, Jiang Shi, ghost mother of ephemera, Emperor Tianhong, and the white spirit rat watching nearby, their hearts surging and discussing continuously. Why has the blood prison great saint stopped again? Could it be he's fallen under an illusion technique? An Exin is formidable. It feels like she's toying with the blood prison great saint. Don't let him hear you say that, hell hold a grudge. Senior sister in Exan is indeed strong. It's entirely unclear how powerful she really is. Did anyone see what divine skills an Exan used? The disciples are endlessly discussing, and Guan intentionally used a barrier to conceal Nzin's immortal emperor's eye, so the disciples did not witness any change in Nzin's eyes, nor could they feel the power of the immortal emperor's eye. This led to the combat feeling awkward, with the blood prison great saint intermittently pausing. If not for his formidable corporeal body and abundant chi blood, he would have already been defeated. Compared to Nzin's immortal emperor's eye, Guan was more pleased with the progress of the blood prison great saint. The blood prison great saint had created his own divine skills, allowing his flesh to rapidly regenerate. Even if his body turned to dust, he could recover in a short period. But such recovery requires consuming soul energy, and he began to feel fatigue, a fatigue emanating from the depths of his soul, weakening his control over his body. At this rate, his defeat was inevitable. Guan pondered whether to send the blood prison great saint to train along the path of the great Tao. The blood prison great saint was well suited to grow stronger through combat, but regrettably, when asked several times before, he stubbornly refused to go. Even though Guan promised he could return to the beginningless afterward, the blood prison great saint still did not agree. If the blood prison great saint were assigned to tasks in the human world, he would go, but the path of the great Tao is far away, and he always felt that once there, returning shortly would be difficult. No, it wouldn't work. He must be made to go out and train for 100,000 years before returning. Guan thought silently. Not only to make blood prison great saint grow stronger but also to reduce the pressure on the other disciples. The blood prison great saint not only loved to fight but also had a foul mouth. Every time he won, he'd resort to frantically taunting his opponents, so now no one hoped he would win, all were watching his misfire. After some time, the blood prison great saint was defeated and exited the barrier with an Exin. An Exin, like a celestial being descended to the mortal world, landed beside Guan, her clothes without any change, appearing not to have undergone any battle. The blood prison great saint hung his head low, devoid of fighting spirit, his fists clenched tightly. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 680 Wuxi Free Immortal, Master, I won. An Exan lightly laughed, causing other disciples to cheer, which made the blood prison great saint even more uncomfortable. To appear magnanimous before the master, he had to force a smile. After Guan offered a few simple remarks, he let an Exan lead the disciples away. The blood prison great saint landed beside Guan, hanging his head, looking utterly forlorn. After the aura of an Exan and the others faded into the distance, he gritted his teeth and said, "Master, next time I will definitely win it back." Thinking about it now, it's truly incredible. Before the creation of the Taoist field of the beginningless, Nzin's talent was so mediocre, hardly worth mentioning compared to other disciples. Yet, after arriving at Wuxi, Nzin's Tao practice advanced rapidly. Recalling the earlier battle, he even felt a chill. Nzin's divine skills were too terrifying. He was besieged by countless Nzins. If not for his Boda's strong self-healing power, he would have long been defeated. The self-healing divine skill he created seemed tailored to showcase Nzin's prowess. With anyone else, it's doubtful they'd witness so many Nzins. The blood prison great saint's heart had never been so defeated. He dared not face Guan's gaze. Although an Exan was Guan's most cherished disciple, he was the only mount. In his view, his position was more special, and he could not afford to lose. Guan seldom saw the blood prison great saint so dejected, asking, "Are you very unwilling?" The blood prison great saint nodded heavily, his usual arrogance gone. "Lost is lost, win back later. An Exan also once lost to you. Even I have opponents I cannot defeat," Guan comforted him. The blood prison great saint took a deep breath, trying to calm his emotions. Guan's lips twitched slightly because he heard the thoughts of the Blood Prison Great Saint. The Blood Prison Great Saint internally asked, "But have you ever lost? If you achieve the primordial Tao Emperor status earlier than an Exant, perhaps you could surpass her." Guan pointed in a direction. The Blood Prison Great Saint looked up at him, reluctantly saying, "She is also chasing after the primordial Tao Emperor. Even if I am one step ahead, she will eventually catch up unless I have stronger divine skills than hers." The suppressive power of the immortal emperor's eye was too strong. After the immortal god reincarnation Emperor Tianhong lost to an Exant, he dared not challenge her again. Only by truly facing an Xin's immortal emperor's eye can one feel that despair. That may not be the case. The divine skills you have created have limitless potential, you just haven't thoroughly explored them. In fact, I have the most confidence in you, but don't tell the other disciples this, Guan said earnestly. Hearing this, the Blood Prison Great Saint was instantly excited, his eyes even glistening with tears. These words at this moment gave the Blood Prison Great Saint a great encouragement. He swept away the feelings of loss and confusion, becoming full of fighting spirit. He believed his master would not deceive him. "Master, I definitely will not disappoint you," the Blood Prison Great Saint promised, also pledging to himself. Guan followed up. "I want to send you to the path of the Great Tao for training. Strive to become the first primordial Tao Emperor of Wuxia, and once you achieve it, you can return." Upon hearing this, the Blood Prison Great Saint's excitement calmed down. He did not immediately agree, appearing hesitant. He feared that after he left, Guan would adopt another mount. Not to mention, Celestial Cyan and Tian Bai were eyeing his throne. Guan didn't comfort his concerns, joking that if he wanted to take a mount, would he need the Blood Prison Great Saint's permission? "I am very interested in the origins of the primordial Tao Emperor and the Taoist Emperor. You must not only grow stronger but also collect information on both, and when you return, I will help you perfect your divine skills," Guan said solemnly. Seeing his serious demeanor, the Blood Prison Great Saint dared not refuse, and could only agree. Guan let him rest for a few days, and then would send him to the path of the Great Tao. Embracing this arrangement, the Blood Prison Great Saint began to look forward to the path of the Great Tao. What kind of place is it? He must make a great name for Wuxia. The Blood Prison Great Saint thought his master might really send him, allowing him to build rapport along the way. However, once he was ready, the master simply waved his sleeve and sent him to the path of the Great Tao. So this is how he's sent. The Blood Prison Great Saint's senses were rendered useless. He tightly closed his eyes, thinking bitterly. After a while, he felt his feet touch solid ground, his senses quickly returning to normal, and as he opened his eyes, his pupils widened. Before him was a magnificent Tao intent Qi Si, vast and boundless. He stood upon a meteor, feeling so small, with the darkness beyond the Tao intent Qi Si appearing terrifying, as though it could swallow him at any time. "What a majestic Tao intent!" the Blood Prison Great Saint murmured, the last bit of resistance in his heart disappearing completely. In such a place for cultivation, he might truly surpass an Xian again. Search * the novelier. T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The departure of the Blood Prison Great Saint left a quieter atmosphere in the Taoist field of the beginningless. Upon learning that had been sent by Guan to the path of the Great Tao for training, everyone felt a sense of crisis. When the Blood Prison Great Saint returns, he will surely be more arrogant. Though they could no longer compete with the Blood Prison Great Saint, they did not wish to be mocked for their increasing gap. Thus, the Taoist field of the beginningless entered a period of secluded cultivation. The human world was also changing. As more and more sects rose, the Tao court's suppressive power declined, their control over the outer heaven was broken, and the sects of the human world sent disciples to the outer heaven for training, ushering in the first outer heaven craze of the new era. Reaching the outer heaven immortal stage allowed one to go to the outer heaven, but previously, due to the Tao court, cultivators found it difficult to venture there. As more cultivators went to the outer heaven, its stars began to be claimed. Some fled to the outer heaven, some opened little worlds or dojos there, and some even established sections. The human world was experiencing a flourishing era not seen in a million years. In this context, 100,000 years passed like pages in a book, leaving no trace. In those 100,000 years, in the Taoist field of the beginningless, besides the ghost mother of ephemera, the weakest cultivation level was Tao Void Profound Immortal Realm, and an Exen was the first to reach the Zizai Immortal Realm, becoming the first free immortal among Wushi's disciples. A 55,000-year-old free immortal? How dazzling! However, Enzin's reputation did not spread in the human world, but Emperor Tianhong could use her as a comparison to the world's prodigies, making him feel incredulous while also motivating him to cultivate harder. In the 2nd century after breaking through to Zizai Immortal, an Exen finally selected a favored disciple. She brought back a 6 or 7-year-old boy to the Taoist field of the beginningless, hoping Guan could bestow a name. This child did not come from the Qingkuan sect but was an orphan from the 9-spirit continent, whose parents were killed by a demon beast. Had it not been for Enzin's intervention, he too would have perished. This experience reminded Guan of an Hao from back then. Let's call him Enzizai. Guan looked at the timid boy hiding behind an Exen, murmuring. An Exen asked with a smile, "Is it because I've just reached the Zizai Immortal Realm?" Guan shook his head, saying, "I just hope he's different from your senior brother, free from many burdens, and I hope in this life he can live freely and for himself. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 681. Vile Ancestor, Carefree and at Ease, huh? An Exen murmured to herself, thinking of an Hao, her mood somewhat heavy. When she was a child, her parents were eaten by demons. If an Hao hadn't desperately protected her, she would have died too. In her heart, an Hao was like her own brother. Even though they only depended on each other for a few years, before an Hao soared far away, she constantly thought of him. An Hao was like an eagle, never stopping, always soaring high, with missions constantly appearing in his path, ultimately dying for all living beings. In this life, he was reincarnated as Tian Hao, yet he had to head to the misty immortal court for the sake of the celestial spirit great world. After knowing An Hao's destiny, An Sheng Tian no longer resented this primordial ancestor. Instead, he took An Hao as a goal, wanting to surpass and how to prove that An family's descendants were not a burden on An Hao. Young Enzizai did not yet understand the meaning of his name. When an Exen fell silent, he couldn't help but shout to Guan, "I have a name, I don't want to be called Enzizai." Guan asked with a smile, "Then what's your name?" "My mother calls me Little Spring." "You can keep that name, people can have more than one name." Guan's words made Enzizai feel much more relaxed. For some reason, being renamed made him very nervous, as if he was being sold. At this time, Shenzhen, the celestial demon child, and others arrived one after another, curious about Enzin's disciples' talent. Enzizai's talent was naturally not lacking, with an ultimate lifespan of 9,999 years as well. On the 9-spirit continent, orphans like him were not in the minority, especially when the timeline was extended to tens of thousands of years. In the long years, such tragedies were countless. An Exien never deliberately managed these unless they appeared right before her. Enzizai attracted Enzin's attention because he invoked the rules of heaven and earth in his despair, even though he had no cultivation level at all. However, the ultimate lifespan of 9,999 years is not uncommon in today's human world. Physical aptitude is no longer the most important. Unseen, untouchable comprehension determines how far a cultivator can go. Enzizai's adorable appearance quickly won everyone's pity. Guan did not plan to teach Enzizai, conveniently giving an Xin a chance to hone her teaching skills. Enzizai's arrival broke the quiet atmosphere of the dojo, and the disciples stopped retreating, beginning to accompany Enzizai's growth. This was Wushi's first third-generation disciple. Even if the disciples had competitive hearts in teaching and passing on skills, they hoped Enzizai would excel. Sarch * the Navire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Thus, everyone took turns teaching in Zizai. In the following decade, the Taoist field of the beginningless was quite lively. Though in Zizai was an orphan, he was not solitary. In fact, he was somewhat carefree, often causing chaos in the dojo. At 17, in Zizai had already formed a nascent soul, with outstanding talent, filling all the Wushiji disciples with confidence and expectation. In the summer, Guwen was reading on a large tree by the mountain stream, enjoying the cool breeze. A figure appeared out of thin air beneath the tree, looking up at him. It was Zizai. He wore a fitted blue and white robe, his long hair casually tied with a cloth band. His handsome face still bore a hint of childlike innocence. "Hey, ancestor, why are you reading again? What book is so interesting?" And Zizai called out. His divine sense couldn't approach Guwen, so he didn't know what Guwen was reading. Since childhood, Guwen hadn't taught him cultivation, but under everyone's guidance, he knew the ancestor was the most powerful person in the world. However, Guwen liked to tease him. When he was young, Guwen would sometimes suddenly yank his pants, embarrassing him in public, so he didn't speak to Guwen with much reverence and even harbored some hostility. In his heart, this ancestor was too harsh. Whenever the uncles praised him, the ancestor would always criticize him, pointing out his shortcomings. The most crucial part was these flaws indeed existed, making him feel aggrieved. "This is a book for adults, don't ask." Guwen replied casually. Although he didn't teach in Zizai, he quite liked the boy. And Zizai's arrival indeed made the dojo lively, life more interesting. Sometimes, Guwen had to admit he was getting old. Elders like children the most. He wasn't like this before. After hearing this, Zizai became more curious about the book in Guwen's hands but was displeased with Guwen's words, insisting he was already grown up. "Master asked me to tell you that the Magic Battle Conference of the Qingkuan sect is about to begin and asked if you would like to go watch?" And Zizai continued to ask, very curious about this matter. Since coming to the Taoist field of the beginningless, he hadn't been out and was curious about everything outside. "I will go to watch, but I won't go with you all." And Zizai pouted, waved his fist at Guwen, and then disappeared from where he stood. He was already eager to head to the Qingkuan sect. Guwen didn't care about his small actions and continued reading, thoughts dwelling on the path of the Great Tao. The Blood Prison Great Saint had already successfully carried out a reincarnation projection, considered stepping on the road of the primordial Tao Emperor. Now, over 1,000 beings had stepped onto the primordial Emperor road, and although no one truly became a primordial Tao Emperor, many forces were investigating the primordial Tao Emperor, even including the Celestial Court. Guwen saw a celestial god investigating the primordial Tao Emperor and even engaging in dialogue with one of the contenders for the primordial Tao Emperor. This celestial god seemed familiar to him, and although the other possessed the destiny of the Celestial Court, which could block deductions, he instantly noticed the resemblance between the celestial god and Long Xen. He vaguely speculated in his heart. Even if this celestial god had nothing to do with the Long family, Guwen wouldn't deliberately suppress them. He had anticipated today's scenario when he opened the primordial Tao Emperor. He wasn't worried about anyone discovering him through the fortune of the primordial Tao Emperor. The fortune of the primordial Tao Emperor had already been established, equivalent to the Great Tao. The Great Tao is boundless. Who could trace it back to its root? Fang Xian grew well on the primordial Emperor road, his understanding of the Great Tao far surpassing those of the same realm after multiple reincarnation projections. Guwen believed he wouldn't lose if he fought with someone of the same realm on the Emperor road. This indicated that the primordial Tao Emperor indeed held potential not inferior to that of the Taoist Emperor. After observing for an hour, Guwen turned over and leapt down, tucking the green hero travelogue into his chest, then headed towards the Qingkuan sect. He wasn't going to watch the Magic Battle Conference of the Prodigies but because an old friend had arrived at the Qingkuan sect. This old friend was none other than Profound Celestial Intent, the writer of the Green Hero Travelogue. After traveling the world for hundreds of thousands of years, it was the first time he came to the Qingkuan sect, bringing no particular purpose, just happening to arrive here. Guwen looked forward to meeting him. They truly hadn't seen each other for hundreds of thousands of years, and Gu-n's green hero travelogue was bought from the human world, not obtained directly from profound celestial intent. Meanwhile, profound celestial intent was strolling through the bustling main city of the Qiankuan sect. He had visited many flourishing sects like this. Walking amidst the crowd, he observed the ethos of this sect, seeking inspiration. This Qiankuan sect is indeed remarkable, not only deeply rooted but I haven't witnessed a single act of bullying and oppressing the weak, truly deserves to be the leader of the righteous Tao in this region. Profound celestial intent marveled internally, involuntarily thinking of the supreme sect. Since Gu-en left, he hadn't returned, unbeknownst if today's supreme sect still possessed such a spirit of the righteous Tao. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 682. The style of a Grandmaster. Profound celestial intent walked on the streets of the Qiankuan sect, thinking about the supreme sect. Although he missed the supreme sect, he had no desire to return. He did not want to shoulder too much responsibility, he desired more to roam the world freely. Even if the supreme sect had the extraordinary opportunities left by the supporting Tao Sword Venerable, he still did not wish to go back. Compared to the cultivation level, he had more pursuits. In his view, if one lived only to live longer, it would be very dull. He enjoyed experiencing the dust and grime of the human world, interacting with different people, and he liked writing these experiences down, hoping that those destined to see them would make his life worthwhile. Of course, the reason he was willing to stay away from the supreme sect was that Gu-en had left. Although Gu-en was gone, the sword intent left at the heaven repairing platform remained, showing that Gu-en still had affection for the supreme sect. With someone protecting the supreme sect, he had no worries. "Hey, fellow Taoist, you look unfamiliar. Is this your first time here?" A voice interrupted profound, celestial, intense thoughts. He turned his head to see a middle-aged cultivator approaching. This person was wearing an elegant blue robe, his demeanor serious, exuding an extraordinary aura. Profound celestial intent stopped, waited for him to approach, and then spoke. "I am profound celestial intent. Indeed, it is my first time visiting the Qiankuan sect. I came to broaden my horizons after hearing about your grand assembly." He had entered the Qiankuan sect openly, registered his identity, and handed over spirit stones, so he was not worried about any trouble. The middle-aged cultivator spoke softly. "I have a few books here that can help you better understand the Qiankuan sect. Would you like to look at them?" Turns out he was promoting books. Profound celestial intent was somewhat disappointed. He couldn't discern the man's cultivation level and had thought he was a great cultivator. Now it seemed the man likely possessed some secret treasure, and his cultivation was probably not high. "How many spirit stones?" Profound celestial intent asked. Being new here, he didn't want to instigate trouble. If it wasn't too expensive, he could consider it a good deed. 100 pieces of top-grade spirit stones, the middle-aged man said seriously. "So expensive? Forget it." Profound celestial intent shook his head and walked away. Unexpectedly, the middle-aged man blocked him again, making him annoyed and ready to get angry. The middle-aged man raised his right hand, twisted his fingers to reveal 7 books, and profound celestial intent was drawn to their titles. Qiankuan's Secret History, Elder's Apricot Loft Tour, That Night, That Wind, Those Emotions. Just from the titles, profound celestial intent sensed an author's magnificent literary accomplishment, as if he saw a literary giant, comparable to himself. "You definitely won't regret buying them," the middle-aged man said earnestly, as though imparting a world-class secret manual. Profound celestial intent asked, "May I take a look at a couple of pages?" The middle-aged man immediately took out a book and handed it to him. He accepted it, flipped a page casually, and was astounded. "I'll buy it. Do you have any more?" Profound celestial intent asked resolutely, determinedly. "No more, but there will be more in the future. If you're still here when the new books come out, I'll find you," the middle-aged man replied, shaking his head. always serious, leaving one unable to imagine him doing such things. His attitude greatly impressed profound celestial intent. What kind of conviction is this? See Ditch Oval Fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. May I ask for your name, fellow Taoist? After the transaction, profound celestial intent raised his hand to salute and asked, his tone full of respect. The middle-aged man returned the salute and then left with a single sentence, I am Zhang Chuanxiu. Zhang Chuanxiu? Profound celestial intent remembered the name, deciding to write it into his book. Subsequently, profound celestial intent lost interest in sightseeing and quickly found an inn to savor the newly acquired treasure. Elsewhere, the magic battle conference of the Qiankuan sect officially began. And Zizai followed an Xen to see the excitement. They were warmly received by the Qiankuan sect's senior members. Hearing that Zizai was Zin's disciple made the senior members gaze at him fervently. Wushi previously sent Tian Hao to the Qiankuan sect, a person who truly made the Qiankuan sect famous worldwide, bearing profound significance. An Xen was Wushi's eldest disciple. To be taken as her disciple meant that Zizai must be an extraordinary existence. However, they did not dare to recruit rashly, they simply endeavored to please Zizai. In the pavilion observing the battle, Yuan Luo sat on a chair, looking far towards the pavilion where the elders gathered, his eyes landing on Zizai, frowning slightly. He naturally recognized an Xen and respected her greatly. In his youth, an Xen had even given him a spell. Yet seeing the elders' attitude made him somewhat unhappy. The Qiankuan sect was fine everywhere except for a lack of confidence, always needing Wushi's assistance. The 20 prodigies previously sent by Wushi were indeed strong. A few even made him troubled, but these people stuck together and never truly integrated into the Qiankuan sect. Sometimes he worried they might betray them. In his view, where in this world is there perpetual giving? Why did Wushi help the Qiankuan sect so much? If in the future, Wushi needed reciprocation, how could the Qiankuan sect refuse? Always relying on others, when can they become independent? The Tao court is like this, with too many factions, always clashing, unable to truly rule the world. Sometimes one decision stirs internal debate for decades, centuries, and even the master of the Tao court lacks absolute power. Yuan Luo noted Zizai's appearance, and Zizai seemed to sense something, turning to look at him. Their eyes met in the distance, and Yuan Luo quickly averted his gaze. Zizai frowned slightly, feeling uncomfortable under Yuan Luo's stare. That person's name is Yuan Luo. He was once our Qiankuan sect's top genius, quite remarkable. I can have him teach you divine skills, Yi Qingshan said to Zizai beside him, smiling. Sitting beside the sect hierarch, such treatment stirred not only Yuan Luo's interest. Many disciples discussed Zizai's background. Zizai shook his head, thank you, sect hierarch, for the offer, but I have my master and martial uncle's guidance, no need to trouble you. His words shook Yi Qingshan and the senior members. So many of Wushi's disciples teach him? It seems Wushi intends to nurture him heavily. This intensified the senior members' desire to recruit Zizai. They wouldn't doubt Wushi but instead believe Zizai's future was boundless, destined to become renowned worldwide. LV Xian, Chen Chuan, and Sheng Tian already had world-renowned names. This young man was likely to surpass these three. Zizai felt uncomfortable with their gazes, so he could only direct his attention to the ongoing combat ahead. In the dim void, countless meteors drifted, while afar, nebulas shifted their forms, wondrously beautiful. Fang Xian, clad in red, walked on a sword, his robe fluttering, embodying the grace of an immortal. Fang Xian's gaze was forward, his eyes calm, but his heart was slightly anxious. I wonder what the peers will think of me? Fang Xian journeyed to this void, sensing the destiny of the primordial Tao Emperor here, not the true primordial Tao Emperor, as the destiny was lesser, but close. He had studied the primordial Tao Emperor for many years, encountering a bottleneck now, urgently wishing to exchange insights with others. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 683. The most idle person. Fang Xian journeyed through the meteor ocean, feeling the increasingly intense destiny unique to the pursuers of the primordial Tao Emperor, which made his heart more uneasy. On the path of the great Tao, cultivators pursuing the Taoist Emperor would fight upon meeting. He wondered if those chasing the primordial Tao Emperor would do the same? To become the primordial Tao Emperor, there is no need to kill each other, which is why he dared to come. But the path of the great Tao has no rules, and there will always be those who recklessly act, so he cannot guarantee that such interactions won't cause him trouble. Regardless, he had already come. Fang Xian released his aura, wanting to let the other party sense him. Do you also wish to become the primordial Tao Emperor? A voice came from ahead, surprisingly that of the Blood Prison Great Saint. In the depths of the void, the Blood Prison Great Saint sat in meditation on a meteor, eyes open, looking towards the direction Fang Xian flew from. Appreciation showed in his eyes, not just because Fang Xian was a kindred spirit, but also because Fang Xian's attire suited his taste. I am Fang Xian, indeed wishing to become the primordial Tao Emperor. I hope I haven't disturbed you, fellow Taoist. Fang Xian's voice came with a tone of anticipation. He did not immediately approach the Blood Prison Great Saint but maintained a safe distance. The Blood Prison Great Saint stood up, gazing from afar at Fang Xian, scrutinizing him. Fang Taoist, I did want to meet other kindred spirits. Would you come over for a chat? The Blood Prison Great Saint responded, his tone somewhat warm, making Fang Xian breathe a sigh of relief. The Blood Prison Great Saint had long wanted to converse with a kindred spirit, not for cultivation, but to complete the tasks assigned by his master. He came to the path of the Great Tao not only for cultivation but also to gather intel on the Taoist Emperor and the primordial Tao Emperor. Fang Xian appeared in front of the Blood Prison Great Saint out of thin air, raising his hand in greeting. The Blood Prison Great Saint smiled, warmly grabbing Fang Xian's wrist and pulling him to sit down for a chat. Fang Xian remained slightly vigilant, but as their conversation deepened, he grew fond of the Blood Prison Great Saint. The Blood Prison Great Saint began by sharing his insights without reservation, speaking boldly without probing Fang Xian. Having lived until today, Fang Xian had experienced a lot of deceit and could discern that the Blood Prison Great Saint bore no scheming, only infinite curiosity about the primordial Tao Emperor. He too was filled with curiosity about the primordial Tao Emperor, feeling he could enjoy a pleasant rapport with the Blood Prison Great Saint. After the Blood Prison Great Saint finished sharing his insights, Fang Xian too spoke without reservation, which also gained the Blood Prison Great Saint's favor. This person is good, can befriend. This was the Blood Prison Great Saint's sentiment. Having been on the path of the Great Tao for so many years, he felt lonely, long wanting someone to talk to. The two felt an instant connection, lamenting not having met earlier. When the Blood Prison Great Saint revealed he came from the celestial spirit Great World, under the primordial Sword Master, Fang Xian was shocked, which puzzled the Blood Prison Great Saint, who inquired about it. After hesitating for a moment, Fang Xian disclosed his origin. Upon hearing that Fang Xian was once a battle court disciple and participated in the attack on the celestial spirit Great World, later being exterminated by the supporting Tao Sword Venerable, the Blood Prison Great Saint couldn't help but laugh. Just when Fang Xian thought the Blood Prison Great Saint would mock him, the Blood Prison Great Saint laughed and said, "The fact that you survived under my master's hand means you weren't meant to die, although it must be confessed that my master showed mercy. To be honest, I've had the same experience as you." Fang Xian was surprised, not expecting the Blood Prison Great Saint to have had a similar experience. He immediately inquired about his past, and the Blood Prison Great Saint began to recount his tale. Knowing that the Blood Prison Great Saint came from the mortal world, nearly killing the supporting Tao Sword Venerable's disciple after ascending, and was eventually subdued by the Sword Venerable, gaining an unprecedented opportunity, made Fang Xian hold the supporting Tao Sword Venerable in even greater esteem. Let alone, in that battle, the supporting Tao Sword Venerable really could have annihilated all battle court beings. This supporting Tao Sword Venerable was truly merciful, a deservedly enlightened great power. He felt that the sword venerable acted so, considering that many of the battle court disciples were against their will, much like himself, having no choice but to follow orders from the sect. After their honest exchange, their relationship improved, and the blood prison great saint proposed they become sworn brothers, to Feng Xian's delight. They immediately knelt and swore to the supporting Dao sword venerable and the great Dao, which left Guan at the Taoist field of the beginningless both laughing and crying. Karma is indeed interesting. Although he could not predict how the primordial Dao Emperor would develop, he could precisely forecast the futures of the blood prison great saint and Feng Xian. The two would venture together on the path of the great Dao, even expanding their sworn brotherhood to include other prodigies chasing the primordial Dao Emperor. Eventually, the blood prison great saint would bid farewell to his brothers and return alone to the celestial spirit great world, while Feng Xian and the others would continue to make a name for themselves on the path of the great Dao, with their future being immeasurable. Millennia passed swiftly. One day in early summer, Guan was fishing in the dojo, holding a fishing rod in one hand and a book in the other, a new work by profound celestial intent. Through his minor manipulations, profound celestial intent remained in the Chengkuan sect, waiting for more books to appear before him, unaware that these books contain Dao intent, causing profound celestial intent to frequently achieve enlightenment and steadfastly decide to linger a while longer. Yes, just linger a little longer, he's destined to roam the earth. See the novel, Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. With this mindset, profound celestial intent eagerly anticipated more works from that mysterious author. Even if it meant waiting 100 years for a book, he thought it worth it. As Guan enjoyed a peaceful moment of relaxation, a figure appeared behind him. Ancestor, Master won't let me go out, fearing that if I leave, I won't return. But I just want to go out for some experience and I will come back eventually. And Zizai said aggrievedly, his temperament still youthful at 1,000 years old, because he had yet to experience life's trials, and he knew this, hence his desire to gain experience, just like the prodigies of the Chengkuan sect. Guan, with his back turned to him, responded casually, "You underestimate the hold of the mortal world. Once you go out, you might not return. I can't make this decision. If you want to go out, persuade your master. Frankly, even if you don't come back, I won't mind." Although Guan didn't mind Zizai, he cared a lot about Exe. Knowing how much Exian cherished Zizai, he didn't want to interfere with Zizai's life. Hearing his words, Zizai couldn't help but glare at him, feeling his ancestor's nature was as perverse as ever. Zizai rolled his eyes and asked, "Ancestor, how about if I go to visit my uncles?" LV Xian and the others were far from the nine-spirit continent, a journey long enough for him to gain experience. "Ask your master. Can you just speak a little bit for me?" "Ask your master." No matter how Zizai tried to persuade him, Guan remained unmoved, leaving him quite frustrated. Just then, an Exan appeared beside him, scaring him into bowing quickly. An Exan frowned, saying solemnly, "Haven't I told you not to disturb your ancestors' cultivation without reason? Is this considered cultivation?" And Zizai couldn't help but retort. Ever since he became aware, he had never seen Guan cultivate. In his opinion, among the beginningless, the most idle was Guan unpleased, and Zin's eyes flashed and she scolded, "Kneel and apologize." And Zizai felt aggrieved to the point of bursting, yet chose to obediently kneel. Guan turned around, smiling at Zizai, making his eyes redden. An Exan looked towards Guan, asking, "Master, can you predict whether he will return if he goes out?" And Zizai suddenly felt hopeless, believing Guan would certainly not speak up for him. "He will return, but he will go through many events." Guan casually replied, surprising Zizai. Guan had not spoken. He had discerned Zizai's destiny upon leaving the dojo. Eventually, the kid would return, but before that, he'd face many trials, perhaps bearing some missions. Of course, these missions were only within the celestial spirit great world and weren't significant in Guan's eyes. But as long as this kid could resolve them on his own, he was disinclined to interfere. And Zizai was certainly not the last Wushiji disciple. There would be new disciples in the future, so Guan did not consider him crucial. And Xian understood her master's implication. And Zizai would experience many things, and they would undoubtedly be quite challenging. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 684 Inch. Are you ready to face life's challenges? You will meet many people, and you may make enemies. Perhaps you will fall in love with someone, but in the end, it might be unfulfilled. Even so, you still want to go out? And Xian looked at Zizai and asked, her tone melancholy. And Zizai was overjoyed upon hearing this because his master finally relented. Gain or lose, it is my fate. I just want to see, not necessarily to gain anything. And Zizai looked up at his master and answered seriously. Watching his expression, and Xian sighed, took out her Tao treasure, the 6 paths mirror, and handed it to Zizai, saying, "This is my magical treasure. I'll lend it to you. Go visit Qinchuan. Show him this mirror, and he will see you. Tell him I would like you to follow him to cultivate swordsmanship." As Zizai took the 6 paths mirror and was about to say something, and Xian handed him a jade pendant, saying it could guide his direction. "Go now, or I'll change my mind." And Xian said with an indifferent expression. Guan glanced back at Zizai and laughed. "Look at you making your master so angry, such impiety." Because of what he said earlier, Zizai initially felt grateful, but now that sense of gratitude vanished. "Master, I will come back." And Zizai quickly knelt, kowtowed to Xian, then stood up, glared at Guan, and turned to leave. And Xian watched as Zizai disappeared into the horizon and then bowed towards Guan, silently departing. Guan didn't console Xian. Instead, he had a mischievous feeling as if watching a play. People always long for freedom. The harder the challenges, the stronger the desire for freedom. Guan said leisurely. He had taken on many disciples and knew this very well. However, everything must be experienced. An Xian wanting to take a disciple has to face the disciple's mindset. After all, a disciple is human, with thoughts of their own. At this moment, the fishing rod quivered, and finally, a fish took the bait. Guan immediately gripped the fishing rod with both hands, starting a battle of wits with the fish in the lake. Water splashed, scattering onto the leaves, with sunshine illuminating the droplets, making them appear as if they held tiny worlds within. And Zizai's departure once again left the Taoist field of the beginningless quiet, with other disciples also starting to retreat into seclusion for cultivation. For Guan, the liveliness or quietness of the dojo wasn't the most important aspect. Time seemed to speed up with each passing moment. 800 years later, Guan returned to this spot to fish, holding a book in his other hand while waiting for a fish to take the bait. The sunlight was bright, making the lake's surface glisten, and a gentle breeze blew through, ruffling his hair. A figure emerged from the woods behind him, a man in a warrior's cloth robe, with disheveled hair, a weathered face, and stubble around his mouth. His eyes carried a look of sorrow. It was Zizai. Compared to 800 years ago, he was a different person, devoid of his previous spirit, and his demeanor appeared desolate. And Zizai looked at Guan's back, somewhat dazed, with a slight change in his eyes. He suddenly recalled the scene from years ago when he left, with the ancestor also fishing here, turning his back to him, the silhouette unchanged, giving him a sense of traversing time and space. Disciple greets the ancestor. And Zizai approached Guan from behind, bowing respectfully, his voice filled with melancholy. "It's good to be back." Guan replied without turning his head to look at Zizai. He already knew what Zizai had gone through over these years. 800 years seemed like a day to him, but for many, it was a long, lengthy passage of time. During these 800 years, Zizai experienced many things, witnessing the tragic deaths of brothers, those he loved, unable to protect those who trusted him. Too many blows had crushed his former vivacity. If not for Zin's 6 paths mirror protecting him, he wouldn't know how many times he would have died. And Zizai raised his eyes to look at Guan, taking a deep breath, asking, "Ancestor, is there truly justice and fairness in this world? Why do some commit atrocities but still enjoy people's adoration, and even when their sect knows of their crimes, they cover for them?" He was referring to a great cultivator of Taoist Zhang Zizai immortal from one of the 100 sects, the Baidu sect. The disciple of that great cultivator worked for him, capturing mortals among the people, and even some cultivators fell victim, committing all sorts of atrocities. And Zizai and his friends, upon witnessing injustice, offended the great cultivator's disciple, triggering a series of grudges. And Zizai was hunted for over 100 years and once lay in hiding for 100 years before finally killing that disciple, only to uncover the truth. Helpless before Taoist Zhang Zizai immortal's suppression, he could only watch his beloved ones dying. Even the Baidu sect continued to hunt him, and if not for his timely escape to Chunchuan sword sect, he would have already been killed. The sword sect was nowhere near as powerful as the Baidu sect, yet the legend of the beginningless still lingered in the world, giving the Baidu sect pause. The path of cultivating immortality does not lie in the short term. What you see is just a fragment of the vast mortal world. In years to come, what puzzles you will surely have answers. Those evils and seemingly invincible will also be obliterated, while right and wrong will be judged by future generations. Guan responded absent-mindedly. For disciples venturing out, he only ensured their survival but would not aid in revenge, so he wouldn't interfere with Zizai's vendettas. If he desired revenge, he must cultivate diligently and rely on himself. And Zizai's gaze became complex as he continued questioning, "Ancestor, you must have lived for a long time. In your view, does justice prevail in this world, or is it a matter of survival of the fittest?" Looking back, no matter who laughs last, when facing history, they all must raise the banner of justice. This indicates that at least in this world, justice is what all beings desire, and it cannot be shaken. This was Gu An's most patient response to Zizai, without any mockery or ridicule, answering each of his questions seriously. After hearing, Zizai fell into silence. A thought also flashed through his mind, and that was to kneel and ask the ancestor to avenge him. If the Baidu sect could stand up for their disciple, perhaps the ancestor would as well. But the thought came quickly and disappeared just as fast. SEA the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. After all, despite Baidu sect's injustice, it was he who actively intervened. Moreover, back then, neither the ancestor nor the master wanted him to go out, but he insisted on venturing out for training. Sometimes, he wondered if those people might have escaped a disaster if he hadn't gone out. The more Zizai thought about it, the more uncomfortable he became, even nearly unable to breathe. "I can go into the reincarnation and retrieve all the people you care about, bringing them back to life. But you have to consider one point: in their next life, they might fare better, or after being resurrected, they might endure more suffering. You cannot predict any circumstance." Gu's voice floated over, making Zizai's face change dramatically, his eyes revealing an expression of disbelief. Into reincarnation? Resurrection? And Zizai knew the ancestor was powerful, but he never grasped just how powerful. Yet hearing the ancestor's words today, he was shocked, as if the entire world before him instantly brightened. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Rest assured, you shall collect the heads of your enemies. Tia the Oval Fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. And Zizai couldn't help but look at Emperor Tianhong. Of all the uncles, Emperor Tianhong was the one he respected and feared the most, for Emperor Tianhong rarely spoke, often just watching him in silence. Though Emperor Tianhong didn't like talking to him, he had taught him spells, making him family in Zizai's heart. Moreover, Zizai believed that Emperor Tianhong could very well be the second strongest within the wuxia, next only to the ancestor, and the aura exuded by Emperor Tianhong made him aspire. Hearing such grand words from Emperor Tianhong, and Zizai did not question it. Instead, it made his heart warm, filling him with a profound sense of security. With such mentors around, the unease brought by the Beidou sect gradually dissipated. An Exen glanced at Emperor Tianhong and said, "You should still cultivate diligently." Emperor Tianhong shifted his gaze and did not retort. "Nephew, tell us what the current human world is like?" Celestial Saiyan looked at Nzizai and asked curiously. Nzizai nodded and began to describe the landscapes he had seen, including the sword sect founded by Chen Chuan. The Wushiji disciples had also gone out to train before, comparing their memories with Nzizai's descriptions, which made them feel the world had changed greatly. Unfortunately, they could not grasp from Nzizai's words what the top cultivation level in the human world was now. When Nzizai mentioned that the 9th heaven of the immortal path was the Zizai immortal realm, his face was filled with a look of longing, which almost made the crowd laugh, but they restrained themselves and tactfully did not expose it. Within the Qi Sea of the path of the Great Tao, the stars shone brilliantly, and a beam of golden light swept across the top of the Qi Sea, countless figures advancing within it, all donned in golden battle armor, with an imposing and unstoppable aura. Zhang Buku and Suyu walked amidst the celestial army, rather inconspicuous. Their gazes were fixed on the hulking figure at the forefront of the army. Celestial Calming God. Celestial Calming God was clad in heavy and commanding celestial armor, wielding a large saber, with Dharma aspects ebbing and flowing around him as he walked. "Are we dealing with the chaos evil demon again this time?" Zhang Buku asked Su Yu in a low voice, while other heavenly soldiers were also discussing, all very excited. To be able to enter the celestial army, one must be a peerless talent and a great power from various realms, and they only got excited about combat. In great battles, it's the easiest to seize destiny and accumulate merit. Their goal is to become a celestial god like the celestial calming god. Suyu replied, "Probably not. If it were the chaos evil demon, there would have been word of it long ago. There hasn't been a whisper, which means that perhaps what's happening next isn't by the will of the Tsangtian but a personal matter of the immortal gods." His gaze swept from side to side, seemingly searching for someone. A personal matter of the immortal gods? Zhang Buku was even more puzzled. Do not assume the immortal gods only act for all living beings. They too have their struggles over interests. Suyu said, his face calm beyond measure. Shedding his beggar appearance, even wearing the heavenly soldier's battle armor, he looked unsuited, unlike Zhang Buku who seemed imposing and majestic. Why is this not about seeking treasures for the immortal gods? How do you conclude it's an internal struggle among the immortal gods? Zhang Buku pursued further. He had long realized Su Yu wasn't simple. In the Tai's great world, Su Yu already acted as if omniscient. Now that they were within the celestial army, Su Yu could still answer his questions, filling him with confusion. Based on their tens of thousands of years of life and death bonds, however, he trusted Su Yu wouldn't harm him. Because this is the path of the Great Tao, a place that cannot be deduced, and where the destiny of the celestial court cannot encompass. Acting here won't be discovered by the celestial court, and even if an immortal god falls here, it's hard to find the true culprit. Su Yu's words made Zhang Buku frown, and the surrounding heavenly soldiers, upon hearing this, inquired with Su Yu. The two had joined the celestial army for hundreds of thousands of years and made many friends. Suyu had no reservations and answered whoever asked him. The celestial calming god at the forefront seemed not to notice him and never looked back. Time swiftly passed. The golden light extended infinitely, and the celestial army's steps never halted, as though trudging along an endless path. For a long time, a vast and overwhelming pressure emanated from ahead, enveloping tens of thousands of heavenly soldiers within the army, causing them all to change their expression. Celestial calming god halted his steps, and with his pause, all heavenly soldiers followed suit, feeling the terrifying pressure from the front, standing solemnly and not daring to speak. Celestial calming god, do you truly intend to annihilate us to the bitter end? A voice filled with murderous intent resounded from the front, the tone full of indignation. Celestial calming god's face was expressionless as he said, Choosing the wrong team, picking the wrong camp, one should face a fate of endless calamity, no matter where you flee. You should be grateful that it's me coming instead of that immortal monarch. The mysterious voice followed, ridiculous, even the Son of Heaven dares to eliminate you. Your fate and that of Huang Feng immortal monarch will be worse than mine. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 686, Myriad Supreme Palm Son of Heaven? Huang Feng Immortal Monarch? Zhang Buku, upon hearing these two names, felt himself being swept into a terrifying conflict among the immortal gods. However, he did not feel afraid as he had no choice in the matter. The heavens have their own justice. Accept the celestial punishment. The celestial calming god raised a giant sword, and a boundless burst of mana erupted, forming a towering Dharma aspect tens of thousands of feet tall, also wielding a sword. Without waiting for the celestial calming god's command, the Dharma aspect swung its blade, as if Pangu was splitting heaven and earth, cutting out a dazzling white light that seemed to want to cleave the cosmic void before it in half. The Qi sea below the great Tao churned violently, creating a spectacle of unparalleled grandeur. All the heavenly soldiers held their breath, their eyes fixed intently forward, the bright light reflecting on their faces, their expressions so stern and unyielding. It wasn't the first time they had witnessed the celestial calming god in action, so they were not shocked, but each time they felt the immense power of the celestial calming god, their hearts would stir with hot-blooded ambition. They too wanted to become such a dominating and powerful celestial god. As the celestial calming god's Dharma aspect swung its blade, the cosmic void ahead shattered in the white light, revealing an incredibly massive figure from the darkness, shrouded entirely in black aura, far larger than the 10,000-foot-high Dharma aspect of the celestial calming god, making all the heavenly soldiers feel insignificant by comparison. Many heavenly soldiers were startled. This figure's demeanor seemed related to the celestial court, yet their appearance was akin to a chaos evil demon, leading to more speculation about the celestial court. Form ranks, slay the foe. The voice of the celestial calming god roared like thunder, and without hesitation he leapt forward, leading the charge towards the formidable figure. Tens of thousands of heavenly soldiers immediately began to cast spells, forming ranks, as mighty celestial Tao destiny gathered together, creating an oppressive and terrifying momentum that soared higher and higher, as if the majestic might of heaven was awakening. Time flew by, and it had already been 10,000 years since Nzazai returned. Nzazai focused on his cultivation, making rapid progress in his cultivation level, yet the path of immortal cultivation is long. No matter how fast he cultivated within 10,000 years, he could not catch up with other Wushiji disciples. With those 800 years of experience, his Tao heart became more stable, and he no longer desired to venture out for experience. He diligently practiced day and night, which greatly satisfied an exant. Guan, however, was somewhat displeased, thinking that Nzazai had become less interesting. He began to look forward to other disciples taking on apprentices. After an Exian took on an apprentice, others indeed began to prepare to take on apprentices. However, with Nzazai's exceptional talent, they had yet to find suitable candidates in the Qingkuan sect or the Nine-Spirit continent, so they had been waiting. The world is vast, with many talents, but for the Nine-Spirit continent, a talent like Nzazai is incredibly rare, one in 10,000 years. Days passed quietly, and Guan occasionally paid attention to the state of the path of the great Tao. The primordial Tao Emperor's influence was growing, with the number of Tao seekers exceeding 3,000. Although many more desired to become the primordial Tao Emperor, yet many perished on the journey. On the path of the great Tao, some matters related to Zhang Buku also caught Guan's attention. Shrouded by the destiny of the celestial court, Zhang Buku's actions were difficult to fully foresee, but his extensive activities always left traces, allowing one to follow his trail. The heavenly army to which Zhang Buku belonged was active on the path of the great Tao, conquering in all directions, causing many forces to be apprehensive. One of the followers of the primordial Tao Emperor expressed confusion to others about why the celestial court was so ostentatious, unlike their past conduct. Guwen did not interfere with the actions of the celestial court, as long as they posed no threat to him. On this day, Guwen had just returned to the Taoist field of the beginningless, sitting on a cliff, playing with the wooden plaque formed by the 72 immortals of Jin Dong, his gaze falling on the reincarnation of Tai Immortal Monarch. This live's Tai Immortal Monarch had lived for over 10,000 years, a disciple of one of the 100 sects in the human world, considered to have exceptional talent, currently experiencing his own life. The present Tai Immortal Monarch seemed to have fully integrated into the celestial spirit great world, yet his celestial Tao immortal position would eventually lead him out of this realm. Sar the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Aside from the celestial court coming to seek Tai Immortal Monarch, the reincarnation of the chaos evil demon, Yuan Luo, had also sowed the seeds of disaster in this realm. Guwen pondered on how to face the celestial court. One day, he knew he would have to make a choice, whether to join the celestial court, oppose it, or live a life of hiding everywhere. Just as Guwen contemplated the future, an Xian appeared behind him. "Master, could you personally teach Zizai a piece of great divine power?" An Xian asked after performing a bow to Guwen. The most powerful divine skill she mastered was the Immortal Emperor's Eye, but this divine skill was strictly forbidden by Guwen to be passed on, so she dared not mention it to Zizai. And Zizai's talent and comprehension were both excellent, and his current cultivation achievements were remarkable, excelling in all respects. However, this made him lack his unique skill, making an Xian feel it was a bit unsatisfactory. In the Taoist field of the beginningless, everyone possessed a unique piece of great divine power as their trump card. Guwen responded, "He's not worried himself, so why are you so anxious?" An Xian replied helplessly, "He will eventually seek revenge on the Baidu sect, where strong individuals abound and prodigies are numerous. With his abilities, it's hard to exact revenge. Since he will inevitably face the Baidu sect, why not teach him in advance?" "Is that so?" Guwen said lazily, showing little interest in teaching that boy in Zizai. An Xian squatted beside him, grabbed his arm, and started to act coy, continuously pleading with him, abandoning her usual serious and solemn demeanor. If an Zizai saw this, he would no doubt be stunned. All right. Unable to withstand his beloved apprentice's coquetry, Guwen could only agree. "There's no better time than the present, I'll teach him today." An Xian, delighted, stood up and disappeared from the spot with him. A stick of incense's time later, a refreshed Zizai, clad in clean robes, arrived behind Guwen, respectfully saluting, unable to show the same disrespect to Guwen as in his youth. Only after experiencing certain things did he realize how difficult everything he had now was to obtain. And everything he now possessed was brought to him by the ancestor. Even when his master took him as a disciple, it required the approval of the ancestor. "What divine skill do you want to learn?" Guwen asked as he stood up, turning to face him. The breeze grazed Guwen's black attire, and he still exuded the carefree immortal aura that transcended worldly constraints. On the way, Zizai had already made up his mind, and he answered without hesitation, "I want to learn a divine skill that can bring justice to the world, capable of forcefully suppressing all injustice." Guwen's lips curled slightly, amusedly saying, "Speak so righteously, isn't it just about wanting a sufficiently domineering divine skill?" And Zizai scratched his head in embarrassment after hearing this. Seeing this gesture, Guwen inwardly nodded in satisfaction. This was more like him in the past, not so weary and stagnant. "I recently created a palm technique that may satisfy you," continued Guwen. "You just created it?" And Zizai hesitated slightly, suspecting that the ancestor wanted to use him to test it out. Though he had changed greatly in character, his memory remained, and the ancestor was great in all respects, except that he loved to tease him. Guwen introduced, "This palm technique is named Myriad Supreme Palm, consisting of 7 palms. Mastering the first palm alone is enough to quell all chaos in the world. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 687, As Godly as Stabilizing the World. See Novelfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Myriad Supreme Palm. Nzazai muttered the name of this palm technique, having heard Guin say that the first palm could quell all the chaos of the world, which made him anticipate and feel pleasantly surprised. The name itself sounds powerful. Please, ancestor, teach me. Nzazai immediately knelt down, speaking with a face full of expectation. Guin looked at him, smiled, and said, "The Myriad Supreme Palm is a secret skill I created after comprehending the Great Tao. It consists of 7 palms, equivalent to 7 kinds of great divine power. The first palm I will teach you is named World Stabilizing Like a God." Nzazai listened patiently. This was Guin's first time teaching him, and he wanted to prove his talent, so he was very attentive. Gradually, his mind became immersed. He was entering the Tao. It wasn't that his comprehension was astonishing, but rather Guin was guiding him with his Tao intent. Since an Exin had spoken, and Nzazai was the first to cultivate the Myriad Supreme Palm, Guin naturally had to teach earnestly. He was bound to ensure Nzazai's Myriad Supreme Palm would become renowned. Unknown how much time had passed. When Nzazai awakened, his eyes became clear, and it was now nighttime. He instinctively looked around and did not find Ancestor's silhouette. He took a deep breath, reminiscing about the insights in his mind, and his spirit trembled. He had never encountered such a powerful secret skill before. He hadn't even mastered it yet, but just recalling the inherited memory, he felt this secret skill was invincible in the world. This was only the first palm. What kind of incredible power would the 7th palm possess? For the first time, he became intensely curious about Ancestor's Tao practice. What kind of cultivation level was needed to create such a secret skill? Nzazai suddenly wanted to follow Guin by his side to cultivate. Previously, he thought Guin was annoying and would keep his distance, but now, he was curious about everything about Guin. How high is Ancestor's Tao practice? What kind of life has he experienced? Why does Ancestor refuse to appear in the world? So many questions aroused Nzazai's sense of rebirth, even filling him with fighting spirit. Thus, in the days that followed, Nzazai began to stick to Guin. As long as Guin was in the dojo, he would go to Guin's side to cultivate the Myriad Supreme Palm. As time passed, the Wushiji disciples gradually learned that Guin had created a secret skill, but they didn't ask Nzazai about how to cultivate the Myriad Supreme Palm. Without Guin's orders, they didn't dare act rashly. This had been a rule cultivated over hundreds of thousands of years, where disciples would not exchange divine skills, and they had full confidence in their own divine skills. In the void, countless meteors floated silently in the darkness. The blood prison great saint and Fang Xian sat shoulder to shoulder, cultivating together. Fang Xian opened his eyes, exhaled a breath of turbid air, and his eyes became complex. "How many lifetimes have you projected?" The blood prison great saint's voice came from beside him, with a tone of exhaustion. Fang Xian glanced over. Seeing blood prison great saint's expression was somewhat desolate as well, he replied, 27 lifetimes, all were bitter." The blood prison great saint followed with a sigh, 21 lifetimes, I was bitter too. Both fell into silence together. After a while, perhaps experiencing enough failures can prepare one for all future hardships. The strength of the primordial Tao Emperor isn't just about cultivation level and divine skills, but also a robust Tao heart. Fang Xian sighed. He could hardly imagine how many reincarnations the real primordial Tao Emperor had experienced, and what kind of mindset he had when looking at the great Tao at all things. Perhaps they hadn't heard of the primordial Tao Emperor before because he had already transcended, without any desire for fame or gain. The blood prison great saint nodded, saying, "The higher my achievement in cultivating this path, the more I revere the primordial Tao Emperor. No wonder my master sent me to cultivate. I feel the primordial Tao Emperor is stronger than the Taoist Emperor. Fang Xian smiled and replied, that's inevitable. The Taoist Emperor relies purely on slaughter and does not cultivate the heart. The two continuously expressed their longing for the primordial Tao Emperor. Even though they had cultivated up to now, they still couldn't see the day when their Tao would be complete, but having each other, they felt more confident and less confused. Just as the two were having an unending exchange, a dazzling light erupted from the depths of the darkness, catching their attention. An overwhelming aura came, causing them to frown. Boom! A Jing Hong shot over swiftly, making the void where the blood prison Great Saint and Fang Xian resided as bright as day. The two looked up to see a figure above. It was a man cloaked in a black robe with chain armor underneath, standing in the void. His face was grim, eyes like a snake, looking down at the blood prison Great Saint and Fang Xian with furrowed brows. Blood prison Great Saint was the first to ask, is there something you need? Although the opponent's aura was powerful, he wasn't fazed at all. At worst, they would fight. It had been many years since he last battled. Fang Xian glanced at blood prison Great Saint, suddenly feeling this sworn brother was more belligerent than he imagined because he heard the eagerness in the blood prison Great Saint's tone. Chapter 688, Unfathomable Ancestor Within the Wusher Dojo. At dusk, Gu Wen was carving a wooden figure in the courtyard, Xinjun was cultivating in front of the artifact refining cauldron, and Zizai was pondering deeply atop the courtyard wall, as the twilight glow cast an aura of tranquility and harmony over the entire courtyard. Suddenly, Gu Wen slightly raised his eyebrows. He sensed that blood prison Great Saint and Fang Xian had been captured, and the threads of destiny suddenly became blurred. Celestial Court. Only the Celestial Court could make destiny appear this obscure. Fortunately, the blood prison Great Saint and Fang Xian carried the destiny of the primordial Tao Emperor, allowing him to track their whereabouts. Gu Wen began tracing their trail through the destiny of the primordial Tao Emperor and saw the plight of blood prison Great Saint and Fang Xian. Gu Wen suddenly thought of the divine court within the Taiwei Great World. The divine court was also aiding the immortal gods in capturing creatures, tossing them into a furnace, and now the same fate befell blood prison Great Saint and Fang Xian. Could it be that these immortal gods were preparing for the celestial emperor's struggle? Gu Wen stood up, stretched lazily. He looked at Zizai and suddenly had an idea. No matter what, Zizai, being the eldest disciple among the third-generation disciples of Wusher, must eventually possess the ability and insight to stand on his own. Currently, Zizai severely lacks insight, even considering the free immortal realm as the highest stage of immortal cultivation. Zizai, I am planning to go out and have a look. There might be battles involved. Would you like to come and see? Gu Wen spoke, and as soon as he said this, Zizai turned his head towards him with an expression of interest. Not only him, but even Xinjun looked at Gu Wen, eyes full of curiosity. Ancestor, I'm afraid I will drag you down. Zizai wanted to go, but recalling his previous experiences of external training made him hesitant. Gu Wen smiled and said, no worries, you want need to act. Such an opportunity is rare. Think about it carefully. Hearing this, Zizai fell silent, while Xinjun spoke. Your ancestor wants to broaden your horizons. You are the first third-generation disciple of Wusher, and you will surely have many junior brothers and sisters in the future. Do you think you are qualified to be the eldest disciple in your current state? Her words were not pleasant, tinged with a shade of mockery, but they did not anger Zizai. Zizai took a deep breath, finding reason in Xinjun's words. He gave Xinjun a grateful look, then said to Gu Wen, Ancestor, I am willing to go with you. Gu Wen immediately waved his sleeve, and Zizai felt a strong wind rush towards him, instinctively closing his eyes. Then Zizai could not open his eyes, only feeling himself falling, unable to extend his divine sense, which instinctively made him feel tense. After a while, Zizai felt his feet touch the ground, and instinctively opened his eyes to see Gu Wen's back. Seeing his ancestor before him, he breathed a sigh of relief. Without speaking, he raised his head to observe the surroundings. He found himself in a dim world, the celestial vault pitch black like a starless night sky. The barren earth and heaps of scorched soil emanated fire sparks and smoldering smoke, gradually making him feel the heat. What is this place? Confusion filled Nzazai's heart, and he could only look towards his ancestor. Guan said, "We are inside a great cauldron, where thousands of beings beyond the 9 heavens of the immortal path are suffering." Beyond the 9 heavens of the immortal path? Thousands? Nzazai's eyes widened, his mouth dropped open in shock, his worldview experiencing a strong impact. In his understanding, the 9th heaven of the immortal path was the highest realm, and he could not envision how powerful those beyond it could be. Yet thousands of such powerful beings were subdued here. Above the free immortal realm is the Tao fruit realm, segmented into Taoist Zhang Zizai immortal, profound Yuan free immortal, and heaven-encompassing free immortal. Beyond that lies the golden immortal Tao fruit, segmented into innate golden immortal, heaven-balancing golden immortal, and Taiching golden immortal. Guan gazed into the distance, softly introducing, leaving Nzazai even more astounded. There are so many realms above the free immortal? See Tachnalf Iyer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. What realm was the ancestor in? His intuition told him the ancestor might very well be a Taiching golden immortal. How else could he know so much? Nzazai nervously asked, "Ancestor, who is the enemy and where are they?" Guan did not hide it. "The owner of this cauldron is an immortal god from the celestial court. We came here because my steed was captured here." "Is it Uncle Master Blood Prison?" Nzazai's eyes lit up as he asked. Though the Blood Prison great saint was a steed, he was regarded as a disciple within Wuxia, and Nzazai had heard his name since childhood. Among the disciples of Wuxia, Blood Prison Great Saint was the second only to his master, with immense capability. "Yes, it is him," Guan answered, having already sensed the presence of Blood Prison Great Saint and Fang Xian within the cauldron. They were trying to escape the cauldron, but no matter how they exerted their divine skills, they could not break free. The other trapped individuals within the cauldron had long given up hope, opting only to meditate to resist the cauldron's flames as best as they could. "Are we going to rescue him now?" Nzazai asked excitedly. He was excited for 2 reasons: meeting the Blood Prison Great Saint and encountering the immortal gods and realms beyond the free immortal. He felt a thrill reminiscent of his early days of training away from the 9-spirit continent. No rush. Guan turned to walk, and Nzazai quickly followed. He glanced around, feeling very nervous, unsure of where the enemy lay. This world is so vast. Is it really a cauldron? Nzazai was secretly astonished, unable to imagine the strength and features of the celestial court immortal god who wielded such a great cauldron. As they advanced, Nzazai saw bones upon bones, human remains and demon remains shocking to the eye, the stances of some of the skeletons making his scalp tingle. He could imagine how desperate they must have been while alive. "Ancestor, how did you bring me in?" Nzazai refocused his gaze on Guan, cautiously asking. Invading even the treasure of an immortal god seemed effortless. Nzazai truly sensed his ancestor's profound abilities, heightening his anticipation for the impending battle. "Just stepped in," Guan answered casually. This offhand remark further increased Nzazai's admiration for him. "Ancestor, will you fight the immortal gods? In this place, it might be worth testing their edge." "What is this place? Where is this great cauldron located? Is it still within our world?" "This is the path of the great Tao, incredibly far from the celestial spirit great world, so distant that with your current cultivation level, you will never be able to come here in your lifetime." Gu's answer left Nzazai wide-eyed again, memorizing the name of this place, determined to journey here if possible in the future. "Ancestor, if a battle does start, will you use the myriad supreme palm?" Nzazai blinked, expectantly asking. Guan gently nodded. He did not look back, but this gesture was enough to make Nzazai feel thrilled. Having cultivated the myriad supreme palm for so many years, he had not truly witnessed the power of this secret skill. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 689. Demon God's Physical Body Under the Dark Celestial Vault. The Blood Prison Great Saint landing beside Feng Xian, both of their expressions grim. No, we can't escape at all. The Blood Prison Great Saint gritted his teeth, clenching his fists, his eyes filled with rage. Having cultivated on the path of the Great Tao for so many years, to be effortlessly trapped in this realm made him feel deeply humiliated. Don't act rashly, let's meditate and observe this realm first. Feng Xian pulled the Blood Prison Great Saint to sit down, cautiously watching their surroundings. The floating scorched smoke and sparks reminded him of a terrible event that had occurred here, and it was likely to happen again. The Blood Prison Great Saint took a deep breath, struggling to calm his emotions. He then dispersed his divine sense, trying to investigate the situation here. He quickly saw figures of other captives but could not see the figures of Guan or Zizai. So many people were caught, and many have a higher cultivation level than us. Feng Xian murmured, his tone full of unease. Xuanji Emperor. He's also here, reportedly one of the best chances of becoming a Taoist emperor among the current prodigies. Feng Xian's face changed dramatically. After saying this, his face looked ashen. The Blood Prison Great Saint felt increasingly anxious. Why had the immortal gods captured so many people? Meanwhile, Zizai followed Guan all the way. He noticed that although his pace hadn't accelerated, the surrounding environment shifted significantly. This was a very peculiar experience. Although he advanced quickly, it was hard to notice unless he observed carefully. It must be the ancestors' doing. Zizai looked at Guan with growing admiration. As a child, he didn't understand why his master always obeyed the ancestor without question and wouldn't ask a single question regarding his commands, nor why other disciples feared the ancestor so much. Though seemingly carefree, the ancestor actually possessed great divine power capable of extraordinary feats, but he usually didn't show off. Zizai silently vowed that he too wanted to become a person like the ancestor. True strength should be displayed at critical moments, not flaunted in daily life. We've arrived. Gu's voice suddenly rang, pulling Zizai's thoughts back to reality. In that instant, he had the illusion that heaven and earth trembled. His gaze was drawn forward, his eyes slowly widened, pupils filled with astonishment. Following his gaze, there was a giant egg standing on the ground ahead, as massive as a mountain, towering 1,000 zhang high. The surface of the giant egg was like flesh and skin with veins, glowing red inside, faintly revealing a giant curled up within. Guan looked up at the giant egg and used lifespan detection, but received no feedback. So, it's not for alchemy but for forging a body? Without a soul, could it be for possession? Guan speculated secretly, sensing that the flesh inside the giant egg was already no less than the heaven-encompassing free immortal realm. This body lacked celestial Tao destiny, yet exuded a terrifying aura, one that the heaven-encompassing free immortal should not have. Guan carefully deduced, finding this aura to be linked to some great Tao, and that this body had countless ties to the 3,000 great Tao. Delving deeper into his deductions, he saw a darkness, a cosmic plane beyond the 3,000 great worlds, oppressively bleak, with nothing visible. Though not much useful information was gained, he could confirm that the purpose of the Great Cauldron capturing so many living beings was to refine their flesh and merge it into this body. Ancestor, what is that? Zizai couldn't help but ask. Just looking at the body within the giant egg made him shudder and gave birth to a strong urge to flee. Perhaps it's a demon god. Guan answered, his gaze fixed on the giant egg ahead. Zizai wanted to ask more questions when suddenly the ground trembled and frightening earth fire erupted. He instinctively flew upward, his eyes glancing at the ground. Guan still stood in place, the blazing flames around him causing no harm, his robe untouched by the fire, as if the surrounding inferno were an illusion. The speed of the earth fire's ascent was so fast that Zizai had to keep flying upwards. In the distance, silhouettes of other living beings also rose, with strong auras bursting from different directions, and Zizai could sense anxiety in those auras. Ancestor. And Zizai looked at Guin, calling softly, terror of the flames driving him to seek reliance on Gu, and suddenly waved his sleeve, taking the giant egg into his sleeve. He then took a step, a fierce wind erupting from around him, spreading instantly, dispersing the flames along the way. In the distance, the Blood Prison Great Saint and Fang Xian still sat on the ground, using their mana to resist the surrounding blazing flames. Fang Xian frowned and was about to speak when a strong wind came from the horizon, blowing away the sea of fire around them, making them turn their heads to look. "What's going on?" The Blood Prison Great Saint muttered, tensing up, his right hand gripping the heaven-breaking Blood Prison saber beside him. Fang Xian didn't answer the Blood Prison Great Saint. He was probing the situation in that direction with his divine sense. Unfortunately, unable to see Guin, he couldn't find the source. Above the Qi Sea of the Great Tao, golden light extended infinitely. Hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers walked upon it, swaying unstoppably. At the front, the celestial calming god held a saber in one hand and a black cauldron in the other. Chapter 690. Flip of the hand. As hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers fixed their gaze on the lid of the soul-refining cauldron. Inside the cauldron, the endless sea of fire had already dissipated. One by one, figures soared into the air, hovering, and looked around, eager to grasp the situation. Who extinguished the cauldron fire? Some of these captives had already experienced the burning flames and knew the terror it wrought. That gust of wind just now was definitely no coincidence. There is a mysterious figure extinguishing the fire. And Zizai looked at Guin, his eyes filled with anticipation. What kind of epic battle will unfold next? Under Zizai's watchful eyes, Guin turned, facing a direction, and slowly raised his right hand. It has begun. And Zizai felt a surge of excitement, his eyes filled with expectation. As Guin lifted his palm, a terrifying aura erupted. This time, he deliberately weakened the barriers of cause and effect and aura, allowing all creatures within the cauldron to see him, but unable to see him clearly. The Blood Prison Great Saint and Fang Xian also turned their heads, their gazes locked on Guin. They could only see a blurry figure, unable to discern Guin's true appearance. The Blood Prison Great Saint's expression was invigorated, his breathing becoming rapid. Though unclear, he instantly guessed it was Guin. Back then, when Guin stood against the battle court, his figure was just as unseeable, but his presence was felt. He just got caught, and his master has arrived. Who is that, daring to? Fang Xian furrowed his brow and muttered to himself. Suddenly, as if realizing something, his eyes widened and shifted to the excited, trembling Blood Prison Great Saint beside him, causing his own heart to quiver. That existence has indeed come. On another side of the world within the cauldron, dozens of creatures hovered in the air, headed by a man clad in dark red battle armor. His figure was robust, long hair coiled beneath the majestic headpiece of a divine beast, with a stern face exuding immense pressure. This was the Xuanji Emperor, whose cultivation had reached the heaven-encompassing free immortal realm. He was the existence with the greatest hope of becoming a Taoist emperor on the current path of the Great Tao. The Xuanji Emperor also couldn't see Guin's true self, but this person gave him the same feeling as his clan's ancestor, profound and unfathomable. He had an intuition that this person might lead them out. Under the watchful eyes of thousands of prodigies and great cultivators, Guin gently pushed forward with his right palm. The action seemed casual, like picking flowers and grass. But as Guin's arms straightened, a terrifying force suddenly erupted, shattering the darkness of the celestial vault in front of him. A whirlwind mixed with burnt smoke roared forth, like a pack of dragons vying to be the first to rush out, creating a grand spectacle. Thousands of captives caught in the whirlwind were all stunned by this palm of Guin. They could feel the terrifying, irresistible force. Ever since they fell into this realm, they had tried to break out, all in vain. Their strongest divine skills didn't create the slightest damage. Cloaks flapping and hair swirling, all captives gazed at the broken hole in the horizon where inside shone a dazzling white light, resembling an entrance to a new world. Above the Qi Sea along the Great Tao, hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers watched as a huge hole was blasted through the soul-refining cauldron. The oppressive heat wave surged out, unstoppable, and the majority of heavenly soldiers showed a look of disbelief. Such an immortal artifact was actually pierced through? And from the inside. The celestial calming god's face was equally grim as he leapt into the air, arriving at the hole in the soul-refining cauldron, using his physical body to withstand the wind and waves. He raised his mighty sword high, while hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers began to form ranks. Zhang Buku and Su Yu both directed their mana while looking at the soul-refining cauldron, their gaze concentrated on that hole, curious about what kind of powerful being had broken through the cauldron. They instinctively thought of the Xuanji Emperor, whose performance had impressed them when the celestial calming god captured him. Under the scrutinizing eyes of all the heavenly soldiers, the blinding light inside the hole of the soul-refining cauldron continued to shine as a figure slowly emerged, seeming like a speck of dust compared to the gaping hole but exerting extreme pressure on the heavenly soldiers. Guan slowly walked out of the white light, followed by Nzazai. Neither the celestial calming god nor the hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers could see their true forms, only perceiving two vague silhouettes, which made the celestial calming god even more wary of Guan. "Who are you?" The celestial calming god questioned sternly. He was sure he had never captured these two before, meaning they had sneaked into the soul-refining cauldron without a trace. Their cultivation level was likely above his. This is the path of the Great Tao, and any being daring to oppose the celestial court might intend to kill them. Especially since they hid their true forms, it was clear they harbored ill intent. He could die and be resurrected through the celestial court's destiny, but his hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers couldn't since they hadn't truly been inducted into the immortal class. After putting in so much time and effort, he didn't want his soldiers to fall here. Guan did not respond to the celestial calming god. His gaze swept over the hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers and spotted Zhang Buku. He looked at Su Yu beside Zhang Buku. He had previously calculated that a Daluo being backed Su Yu. Now, looking at Su Yu up close, he could see more of the cause and effect. The Daluo existence behind Su Yu had intricate ties with the celestial court, but wasn't completely shrouded by its destiny. Could it be he wants to break away from the celestial court? As Guan pondered, hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers flew upwards, encircling the soul-refining cauldron, quickly forming ranks, like a giant golden bell's silhouette enveloping the void. Within the silhouette, countless golden dragons and fire phoenixes coiled, exuding immense pressure, with dragon roars and phoenix calls resonating endlessly. From behind Guan, figures flew out of the white light, all the captives emerging. After the blood prison great saint flew out, he gazed at Guan from afar with an excited look, but he restrained the urge to acknowledge him. The master had not revealed his true form, so he couldn't spoil things. He began to anticipate how his master would confront the heavenly court immortals. The Xuanji Emperor, Fang Xian, and other captives saw the celestial court's formation complete and dared not act rashly, all their attention focused on Guan, pinning their hopes on this mysterious great power. Sir, the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The celestial calming god lifted his sword, pointing it at Guan, as his Dharma aspect rose, radiating majesty like an ancient war god standing up, dwarfing even the soul-refining cauldron. "If you refuse to speak, you're an enemy." The celestial calming god shouted solemnly, thoughts rushing through his mind, but with so many enemies over the long years, he couldn't promptly identify who it was. Yet he didn't waste time in idle chatter. During the questioning, he was already mobilizing the celestial army's destiny of the celestial court, focusing it on himself. He was already at the cultivation level of a heaven-balancing golden immortal, and his momentum was escalating crazily. Guan saw through the celestial calming god's little tricks but didn't mind. And Zizai looked at the figure of the celestial calming god and the grand formation of hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers. This was the first time he had encountered such an imposing scene in all his years. Watch closely, this is the first strike of the myriad supreme palm. Gu An's voice suddenly resonated in Zizai's ears, causing his eyes to widen. And Zizai fixed his gaze on Guan, watching him raise his right hand once more. This time, Guan didn't push forward but instead flipped his right hand upwards and then pressed it downwards. Not just in Zizai, almost everyone had their eyes glued to Guan. Seeing his movement, no one dared breathe. As Gu An's palm pressed downward, an immense, boundless pressure descended from the sky, enveloping everyone, shocking them as they looked up. Hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers raised their heads uniformly, the scene utterly spectacular. They too widened their eyes in disbelief. The always composed and profound Su Yu's expression also drastically changed, exclaiming in shock, "How can this be?" If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 691. Su Yu's voice was drowned out by the roar within the void, and Zhang Buku beside him also widened his eyes, with specks of golden light appearing rapidly in his eyes, quickly connecting into a continuum. Hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers looked up, all with expressions of utter astonishment. Celestial calming god looked up and was similarly shocked. He immediately roared in anger, raised his sword, and slashed upwards. His mana, nearly at the limit of the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm, suddenly erupted, soaring skyward. The golden bell phantom formed by hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers trembled violently, and those golden dragons and fire phoenixes, as if encountering a natural enemy, ceased altogether, roaring towards the sky. The thousands of other trapped people behind Guan also looked up, all staring in stupefaction, the golden light illuminating their shocked expressions. Golden ethereal palms of varying sizes descended from the sky, endless and inexhaustible, all shining with piercing golden light, occupying the entire sky above the void, as if another plane was descending, full of oppression. No matter which direction one looked, there were massive golden palm silhouettes as large as mountains, some even larger than heaven and earth, with an unimaginable oppressive force that made it impossible for them to escape the range of the celestial army's formation. Even the Xuanji emperor of the heaven-encompassing free immortals could not count how many golden ethereal palms there were. In the face of such divine skills, the heavenly court immortals were like mere mortals, insignificant and fragile. And Zizai opened his mouth wide, staring blankly at the relentless descent of the golden ethereal palms, his mind blank as he gazed at the spectacle. Time seemed to slow down, and everyone except the celestial calming god had no time to react. The celestial calming god wielded his sword to cut, and in the process of ascending, the vast mana transformed into a crimson qilin, surrounded by heavenly thunder. It was even larger than the soul-refining cauldron, but under the endless palm silhouettes of the god-calming realm, it was like a mosquito caught in a storm, ready to be overwhelmed at any moment. The descent of the god-calming realm was extremely fast, from appearance to arrival in less than half a heartbeat. Countless golden ethereal palms smashed onto the golden bell phantom, and the dazzling golden light made the entire void lose its color. Zhang Buku looked up with wide eyes. He instinctively wanted to use his divine skills, but his actions weren't quick enough, and ultimately, his entire body was engulfed by the golden light. Boom! 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 As the cosmic void lost its color, deafening roaring sounds erupted continuously, and Zizai also closed his eyes, unable to see, and the incoming sounds made him feel as if the entire Tao universe was shaking, his chi blood freezing, causing extreme discomfort. Standing behind Guan, he felt this way, let alone the others. Blood Prison Great Saint felt both uncomfortable and excited, even though he couldn't see. The vast spectacle of the god-calming realm echoed in his mind. Such divine skills, he wanted to learn them too. once he returned, he would pester his master to teach him this divine skill. Xuanji Emperor also found himself unable to perform magic, but he sensed a special fate not only due to pure and powerful cultivation but also a special fate supporting it. This fate was similar to the Taoist emperors, comparable to the Great Tao, yet independent of the Great Tao. This astonished the Xuanji Emperor greatly. Is there a kind of Great Tao destiny on the path of the Great Tao stronger than the Taoist Emperor? He had no time to ponder more, quickly realizing his consciousness was being dragged into slumber. And Zizai had a dream, dreaming of ancestors slaughtering indiscriminately among the heavenly soldiers and generals, no immortal or god able to withstand a single blow, a completely one-sided massacre. Suddenly, Ancestor approached him, frightening him into abruptly waking up, opening his eyes wide and sitting up, gasping for air. The morning sunlight pierced through the mountains and rivers of the earth, shining on him, giving him a feeling as if a lifetime had passed. He instinctively turned his head and found himself in Ancestor's courtyard. Shen Zhen and an Exen were sitting in front of the artifact refining cauldron, conversing in low voices, with no sign of anyone else. He couldn't help but ask, "Master, Uncle Shen, where's the ancestor?" "Your ancestor went out to play, estimated to be back by evening." An Exen replied calmly. It was Shen Zhen who turned his head to look at him, curious. "How was it? Did you witness your ancestor's hand?" And Zizai took a deep breath, nodded heavily, recalling the memories in his mind. He couldn't help but clench his fists, his eyes shining. He replied, "Ancestor used the divine skills he taught me, so strong, there must be at least 100,000 heavenly court immortals, not one could withstand a single palm from him." An Exen also became interested, turning to listen to him describe the previous battle. At the same time, Guan was staying in the mountain god temple of Tai Tsong continent. After picking the ripe medicinal herbs, he came into the courtyard, then silently activated the life span barrier, taking out the demon god body he had taken from the soul refining cauldron, still within an egg. He did not kill the celestial calming god and the hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers. The celestial calming god couldn't be killed, and those heavenly soldiers were innocent, simply following orders. If they were all killed, the karma involved would cover the 3,000 great worlds and various mysterious universes, let alone Zhang Buku, who was also among them. Of course, aside from intimidating the celestial calming god, this battle also showcased the power of the primordial Tao Emperor to those thousands of trapped people and hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers. These trapped people and heavenly soldiers were all great powers and gifted prodigies. They would certainly perceive the fate of the primordial Tao Emperor, and they could spread the primordial Tao Emperor across their respective universes. At this moment, Guan was more concerned with the demon god body that the celestial calming god had refined. He observed carefully and found that this demon god body had a high tolerance for the 3,000 great Taos, meaning it could cultivate various great Taos with ease. For whom was the celestial calming god preparing this body? This body had no heavenly court destiny, so Guan realized that there were hundreds of such bodies within the 3,000 great worlds, and one was hidden within the divine court of Taiwei Great World. SEA the Novel Fire. NE*T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. So many demon god bodies, and they are all being refined by immortals and gods, must be related to the struggle with the celestial emperor. Do they need so many demon gods to overthrow the current celestial emperor's rule? Guan was very curious about how strong the celestial emperor really was today. What was his concept of the heavenly Tao? Perhaps the disregard of the immortal gods for all living beings is related to the battle for the celestial emperor. Guan looked at the demon god body, silently thinking. Profound mysterious Shinran sat beside him, curiously looking at the giant egg in front of Guan. Even though the egg had shrunk a lot, the figure curled up inside still appeared large. Staring at the figure inside the giant egg, profound mysterious Shinran felt very uneasy, feeling that this body was terrifying, making him afraid to disturb Guan. For a long time, Guan glanced at profound mysterious Shinran and smiled. "I shall grant this body to you, to aid in your possession. Do you agree?" Upon hearing this, profound mysterious Zenrin's face changed greatly, not immediately agreeing or refusing, but cautiously asked, "What is the origin of this body?" This body was refined by the immortal gods, true immortal gods. If you possess it, you will have talent surpassing all creation, but you will also bear unforeseen karma, which might drag you into immense trouble in the future. Guwen explained, making profound mysterious Shinrin even more nervous. True immortal gods? The reason profound mysterious Shinrin follows Guwen is because he devoutly believes in immortal gods. Now hearing of true immortal gods from Guwen, his heartbeat quickened. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 692, The Supreme Celestial Emperor, How do you wish me to choose? After much thought, profound mysterious Jinrin decided to inquire about Gu An's attitude. He owed his current achievements entirely to Gu An's support, and he believed Guwen would not harm him. Even if he was merely a pawn for Guwen, he would willingly accept it. Guwen replied, "Naturally, I hope you can accept it, and perhaps in the future, you could use this body to enter the immortal class." Profound mysterious Jinrin narrowed his eyes and asked, "Do you want me to infiltrate the celestial court?" "So clever." Guwen spoke earnestly, "Immortal gods exist, but they disregard all living beings. Some even commit evil deeds in the human world. I think there might be issues within the celestial court that creates immortal gods." The reason he chose to give the demon god body to profound mysterious Shinrin was twofold: to genuinely help him change his fate, and because profound mysterious Shinrin yearned for immortal gods, thus he could send him to the celestial court as a spy. The destiny of the celestial court is complex and cannot be predicted, but if a spy is planted, they can still investigate the internal situation of the celestial court. After hearing this, profound mysterious Shinrin thought it made sense. The current immortal gods were indeed strange. They were not seen saving the world. Instead, many catastrophes arose because of them. "Then I am willing to possess this body, thank you for your grace." Sar the novel, F.I.R. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Profound mysterious Shinrin immediately knelt down and kowtowed to Guwen. If it weren't for Gu An's care, he wouldn't have lived this long. Even though he was already hundreds of thousands of years old, his path of cultivation was still hopeful, all thanks to Guwen. Moreover, he believed Guwen was greatly virtuous. Without Guwen, the world he resided in would have been destroyed several times already. No matter the underlying reasons, born in the celestial spirit great world, he should take its side. Whoever protected it was the true immortal god in his heart. Guwen, looking at profound mysterious Shinrin kneeling in front of him, couldn't help but think back to 56,000 years ago, when profound mysterious Shinrin had also knelt to him like this. He wondered whether this arrangement was a blessing or a curse for profound mysterious Shinrin. Guwen did not hesitate. He had already explained the pros and cons and his intentions to profound mysterious Shinrin, which was also what the latter sought. He believed that profound mysterious Shinrin was not compelled by his power. Profound mysterious Shinrin surely knew that even if he refused Guwen would not trouble him. Then let's begin. On a desolate meteor on the path of the great Tao, Zhang Buku opened his eyes, quickly stood up and looked around. He found himself surrounded by heavenly soldiers. Suyu stood by his side, frowning as he looked into the distance. Zhang Buku couldn't help but ask, "Did that person leave?" Suyu nodded and said, "The other party didn't harm us. They probably left to save someone." Following his gaze at the horizon, the celestial calming god was meditating on a cliff, with his back to hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers. "What's wrong with him?" Zhang Buku whispered, also staring at the celestial calming god. Suyu replied, "He might be transmitting information." He took a deep breath, turned to Zhang Buku and asked, "Did you feel anything during the previous great battle?" Hearing this, Zhang Buku began to recall carefully, thinking of the terrifying scene that seemed to suppress the world, and he still felt fear. After a while, Zhang Buku hesitantly said, that person had a kind of destiny similar to the Taoist emperor, but different from it. The great Tao destiny was no secret to him. He currently had access only to the celestial Tao destiny and Taoist emperor. Whether becoming a celestial Tao immortal god or a Taoist emperor, one would possess unparalleled divine power in the same realm. Now there was a new type. Gu N's great Tao destiny made him feel an extremely fierce aura that directly confronted the soul and Tao heart. Indeed, it's another kind of great Tao destiny. The heavens are about to change, Su Yu said softly, his words full of complexity. Zhang Buku asked in confusion, change? A long time ago, when the Taoist emperor was born, it once triggered a catastrophe that swept through the 3,000 great worlds and all the heavens, even affecting the celestial court. Although the celestial court disdained the Taoist emperor, once there were many Taoist emperors, they attempted to overthrow the celestial court's rule. If this great Tao destiny also flourishes, it will inevitably challenge the divine might of the celestial court. Su Yu's voice was filled with emotion. Do you mean the celestial court will hunt down this kind of destiny? No, the celestial court is arrogant. They disdain all existence, especially the supreme celestial emperor. He can allow all forces to grow. The conflicts between the celestial court and all the heavens are basically about offending a certain immortal god, rather than the will of the entire celestial court. Mentioning the celestial emperor, Su Yu's eyes shone with a light Zhang Buku had never seen before. Zhang Buku could feel Su Yu's immense reverence for the celestial emperor, sparking unlimited curiosity about him. What kind of being is the celestial emperor? Meanwhile, in another plane on the path of the great Tao, Blood Prison Great Saint and Fang Xian were blocked by a group of people. Do you also wish to pursue the primordial Tao emperor? Blood Prison Great Saint asked with a raised eyebrow. The primordial Tao emperor had already taken root and flourished on the path of the great Tao. Blood Prison Great Saint didn't think this was a secret, nor did he know that the primordial Tao emperor was something Guwen had pioneered. After the previous great battle, he assumed that Guwen was also the primordial Tao emperor. It made sense. If Guwen wasn't the primordial Tao emperor, why would he let them cultivate as the primordial Tao emperor? As for Guwen sending him to gather information, he understood it. Even though he had begun reincarnation projection, his understanding of the primordial Tao emperor was still insufficient. Not to mention the primordial Tao emperor, those Taoist emperors who achieved their own great Tao destiny probably didn't know enough about it. Xuanji Emperor nodded and said, indeed, that fiercely powerful great Tao destiny suits me more. Having witnessed Gu and his power, he was enthralled by such a powerful and domineering aura. Even though he was already close to becoming a Taoist emperor, he decided resolutely to abandon it. In his eyes, the Taoist emperor was just a form of power, not his lifelong pursuit. Now, with the emergence of a stronger and more alluring power, how could he hesitate? The people following Xuanji Emperor had similar thoughts. They were very curious about the primordial Tao emperor. To tread the primordial emperor road, you must find the primordial crystal. It will guide you into the path. Blood Prison Great Saint began introducing the primordial crystal. A proud talent behind Xuanji Emperor had a slight change in expression because he had encountered a primordial crystal before but hadn't paid much attention to it, thus secretly blaming himself for being blind. After chatting for a while, Xuanji Emperor finally thanked them and left. Blood Prison Great Saint and Fang Xian both received heavenly materials and earthly treasures from him, which made them feel favorable toward him. This person was different from other proud talents on the Emperor Road. He was not that arrogant and acted considerately. Watching them leave, Fang Xian smiled and sighed, my path is not lonely. I truly look forward to the day when the primordial Tao Emperor overshadows the Taoist Emperor. Blood Prison Great Saint laughed, that day will surely come. The Taoist Emperor's path of proving the Tao, like raising venomous creatures, goes against the natural Taoist technique and will ultimately be eliminated. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 693. 50,000 years in the human world, attacking the celestial calming god's celestial army didn't bring any trouble to Guin. With his help, profound mysterious Jinren successfully possessed the demon god body, but needed time to adapt. Life returned to tranquility once again. Having witnessed the might that could calm the world like a god, and Zizai became thoroughly exhilarated and focused all his efforts on cultivation, more diligently than anyone else. Time flies like a fleeting horse, never to return. 500,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. The human world welcomed an unprecedented golden age, with the 100 sects establishing branches beyond the heavens, exploring the void and the silent extinction domain. The number of free immortals doubled, and most free immortals were born after the reshaping of heaven and earth, all possessing excellent talents. In the Taoist field of the beginningless, the highest cultivation level among the second-generation disciples reached the Zizai immortal realm, able to hold their own, while the lowest were divine thought true immortals. 4 more third-generation disciples had joined, ranked by seniority. They were Lu Zidao, the disciple of celestial demon child, Zhou Yu, the disciple of Jiang Shi, Jiang Lan, the second disciple of an Exen, and Shangguan Xiener, the disciple of celestial Cyan. The weakest, Shangguan Xiener, had also reached the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. The eldest of the third-generation disciples, and Zizai, had reached the cultivation level of Tao Void Profound Immortal. All these third-generation disciples chose to remain at the Taoist field of the beginningless to cultivate, though they did not receive personal instruction from Guin. On this day at noon, Guin lay resting under a tree, checking his attribute panel. Name, Guin, Sir the Novelier. T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Lifespan, 1067, 509/76, 680, 956, 221, 303. Physique, primordial Tao creation body. Cultivation level, perfect Taoist great Luo immortal realm. He was already an ancient being over 1,000,000 years old, with a lifespan reaching 76 trillion years. Every time he saw his age, Guin would sigh with emotion. Truly, time spares no one. Looking back, his greatest sense of achievement was not his own cultivation level, but that the people he cared about were all living well. Li Ya, martial resolution, and Yang Jian were all free immortals. Though not the top cultivations in the human world, they were considered first-rate and held considerable influence wherever they went. Even the 100 sects in the human world treated them well. Other old friends like Jiang Qiong, Li Xiandao, and Profound Celestial Intent were all doing well. Even those like Lu Lingjun, Gu Yu, Zhuo Lin, and Yu Inying, with whom he had lost contact, had received his secret assistance and were living their own brilliant lives. Some people, though drifting further apart, did not leave Guin feeling regretful. He continued to keep an eye on them, considering it a small pleasure in his otherwise calm life. Ancestor, look at the book I wrote. A melodious female voice came from the side. A woman, dressed in a white skirt and as beautiful as a celestial being, floated over like a startling swan, quickly landing beside him. It was Shangguan Xiener, the disciple of celestial Cyan. She was the third-generation disciple closest to Guin, not because she was the only female disciple, but because she shared the same hobby as Guin. Her interest was inspired by Shenzhen. Whenever Shangguan Xiener came to find Guin, he would internally sigh. That wretched Shenzhen, what has he turned his obedient disciple granddaughter into? And celestial Cyan, who lost interest in a disciple in under 1,000 years and completely ignored it. Shangguan Xiener crouched down, handing the book in her hands to Guin, her delicate face full of anticipation. Guin glanced at an Exen meditating not far away, then tucked Shangguan Xiener's book into his arms, gave a slight cough, and said, "I'll read it later, you can leave now, don't disturb your senior brother's cultivation." Shangguan Xiener turned her head to look at an Exen. She held a deep reverence for an Exen. In the entire Taoist field of the beginningless, she feared an Exen the most. Seeing an Exen still meditating, Shangguan Xiener turned back, looked at Guan, and said mysteriously, "Ancestor, Qinkuan's sect is going to war with the Dao court because of Yuan Luo. The information is very reliable." Yuan Luo and Zhao Rushan had a long-standing feud from their early years. Both were once the first geniuses of their respective sects and now held great power, which gave them even more confidence. Conflicts arose with each encounter. "What's it to you?" Guan said casually. In fact, he had already foreseen the final outcome of this conflict. Before Yuan Luo's birth, Emperor Tianhong would kill Zhao Rushan, causing the decline of the Dao court until it disappeared from history. Now that Yuan Luo replaced Emperor Tianhong, a war between Qinkuan's sect and the Dao court was inevitable. Not just Qinkuan's sect, the 100 sects in the human world would also besiege the Dao court, aiming to overturn the world order of the past million years. Many other sects' great cultivators had already secretly colluded with Yuan Luo. The 20 geniuses from the undefeated Emperor clan had also risen. They came from the Emperor clan, inherently belligerent, and had long wished to overthrow the Dao court. Now they were on good terms with Yuan Luo, serving as his support. Chapter 694. After a heated exchange with Guan, Shangguan Xiener left with a frustrated heart. "Master, is there divine scheming behind the conflict between the Dao court and the 100 sects of the human world?" And Xin's voice came through, as she opened her eyes, gazing at Guan from afar. Guan turned his head to look at her and asked with a smile, "What is it? Are you worried about the Qinkuan sect?" And Exin shook her head and replied, "It doesn't matter who wins or loses, it's natural selection, destined by fate. I'm just worried that there's some interference from outer heaven. If that's the case, wouldn't it be a great pity for the sects of the human world? No matter who wins or loses, the internal strife in the celestial spirit great world can't affect much, as a new order will always arise. But the variables brought by the immortal gods are different, potentially overwhelming the entire celestial spirit great world. Such events have occurred before. Then you don't need to worry. The current disputes are also an evolution of the human world's progress." Facing an Exin, Guan was willing to reveal some heavenly secrets. The scheming of the immortal gods has always existed, but it's not the current conflict. An Exin nodded slightly, then came to Guan's side, beginning to inquire about difficulties in cultivation. She, too, had stepped onto the primordial emperor road, though her daily cultivation still primarily focused on the immortal emperor's eye. The master and disciple chatted for a while before Guan finally departed. He walked through the woods, his gaze fixed on the path of the great Tao. Someone was about to achieve the position of primordial Tao emperor. This will be the first primordial Tao emperor. And that person is Feng Xian. On the current path of the great Tao, over 3,000 beings have stepped onto the primordial emperor road. Once the first primordial Tao emperor is born, the fortune of the primordial Tao emperor will rise significantly, extending to the 3,000 great worlds. At that time, the primordial crystal will also be distributed across all heavens and myriad realms. The fortune of the primordial Tao emperor is still in a growing state. If someone were to kill Guan, this fortune would dissipate into thin air. Once a primordial Tao emperor is born, then, even if Guan were to fall, the fortune of the primordial Tao emperor would remain, just like the great Tao, eternal and unchanging. Because of this, Guan also eagerly anticipated Feng Xian's success. At this moment, Feng Xian was meditating in an independent void, where only he and the blood prison great saint existed. The blood prison great saint was far away, not daring to disturb him. Once this cycle of reincarnation reflection concludes, integrating all reincarnation insights, Feng Xian will truly become the primordial Tao emperor. As Guan's gaze fell upon Feng Xian opened his eyes in response, his eyes bursting forth with a frightening brilliance, as if illuminating the entire void. Seeing this, Guan's lips curled up, and he withdrew his gaze. He knew Feng Xian had succeeded, and no one would come to stop him. As the sun set in the west, on the grass by the big river, a man in black with a straw hat was advancing. He carried a broadsword on his back, 3 treasure swords at his waist, and a wine gourd in his hand, drinking as he moved. Behind the man in black was a young boy in commoner clothes, with 2 ropes thicker than his arms tied around him, connected to a broken log with a diameter of over a foot. This scene was quite spectacular because the disparity between the young boy's physique and the log was immense, making one marvel at the powerful strength contained within his small frame. Search * the novel Fire. Net * website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The young boy was already drenched in sweat and panting heavily. He looked up at the man in black ahead and gritted his teeth, saying, "Master, I've been carrying this burden for 100 miles. Are we not stopping yet?" "This is just the beginning," Leah replied casually, tipping over the wine gourd in his hand and shaking it downwards, catching a single drop that fell before tossing it into his mouth. His action seemed quite carefree, making it hard to believe he was a free immortal. The tides of the human world rose and fell, with exceptional talents always taking turns to shine. Li Ya's renown wasn't particularly illustrious, but his growth rate had always been among the top in the world, with continuous opportunities. He, too, was now on the primordial emperor road. Hearing his master's words, the young boy couldn't help but ask, "Continuously refining my physique, is it really useful? When will you teach me the method of cultivating immortality?" "Master, I really want revenge. You can't just mess with me like this." Leah did not turn back, snorted, "You brat, I'm not some idle person who has the time to mess with you. Your physique is extraordinary. It needs to be awakened. I'm doing this for your own good." Hearing this, the young boy could only suppress his frustrated feelings. After a while, he couldn't help but ask again, "Master, where are we going?" "To the sword sect, to see how my junior brother's disciple is doing in their Tao practice." "The sword sect? Is Master Uncle also in the sword sect?" During the years following Leah, the young boy had heard of the sword sect's name, a supreme sect rumored to house immortals. Just the thought of possibly having his master come from the sword sect made him excited. Having lived together for many years, he only knew his master's name was Leah, but not his background, which he was always curious about. Unfortunately, Leah wouldn't divulge any details. Your master uncle isn't there because the founding ancestor of the sword sect is your master uncle's disciple. Li Ya's response made the young boy's eyes widen, his face full of disbelief. He was truly shocked. The sword sect was founded countless years ago, and in the legends of the immortal cultivation realm Headherd, only the Tao court was older than the sword sect. If Li Ya wasn't exaggerating, then how many years had Li Ya lived? Your master uncle has many disciples. Of course, I also have many, but unfortunately, my disciples don't compare to his. Leah hummed softly, intentionally provoking the young boy. As expected, upon hearing this, the young boy quickly said, "Master, don't worry, I will surely not disappoint you. I will cultivate to surpass the sword sect's founder. All you do is brag." Leah said this, but couldn't help the upward curve of his lips. He truly saw endless hope in the young boy, recalling the past and how, at his current realm, to advance his cultivation level required accumulating long centuries, so he also wanted to take disciples to pass the time. He's had more than 10 disciples but felt none could compare to Gu An's disciples. He liked to compare his disciples with an Hao and Yang Jian. The young boy, to divert his focus, began to inquire about the name and whereabouts of that master uncle. Unfortunately, no matter how he asked, Leah gave ambiguous answers, leading to some bad guesses. Could it be that master and master uncle were not on good terms? Just then, the young boy noticed an old man fishing by the river ahead, which confused him. There was no town within 1,000 miles. Why would someone fish here? Could it be a sage in seclusion? He had heard many legends. Great fortune seekers often encountered reclusive sages, thereby gaining inheritances and opportunities. Leah also noticed the old man, appearing indifferent but was actually alert inside. Because he couldn't discern the other's cultivation level, he proceeded without a change in pace. As he walked past the old man's back, The old man spoke. Leah, from the Taizong dynasty, son of heaven of Taizong, sent to the supreme sect for cultivation in his youth. Leah stopped immediately upon hearing this. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 695. Heavenly Ascension Stairs. Leah looked at the old man by the river and squinted, asking, "Who are you, sir, and how do you know me?" The boy in coarse clothing followed and stopped, looking at them nervously. This old man had an unfathomable aura and immediately revealed his master's origins. Clearly, he wasn't simple. The old man slowly stood up, turned to Leah, revealing a face full of wrinkles. His eyes were so hollow that it sent chills down one's spine. "If I said I am an immortal god, would you believe me?" The old man stared at Leah, speaking in an indifferent tone. Leah raised an eyebrow and said, "Anyone who reaches nirvana can call themselves an immortal. There are plenty of immortals in this world. Why wouldn't I believe it? Immortal gods." The boy in coarse clothing was stunned, quickly removing the rope from his body and watching the old man warily. He had experienced family destruction, so his vigilance was extremely high. "I am the Huang Feng, immortal monarch of the celestial court, ruling over the 3,000 great worlds. Everything in your eyes is not even as large as my palm to me." As the old man spoke, he raised his right hand, his gaze falling on his palm. Such arrogant words made Leah frown. He also grew cautious, ready to fight at any time. "Throughout hundreds of thousands of years, I've sent people to help you numerous times, teaching you Taoist techniques. Of course, your accomplishments today are also due to your own strong Fuyuan and the help of other benefactors. But the immortal gods have always been watching you." Huang Feng, immortal monarch, raised his eyes to Leah, their eyes meeting. Leah inexplicably believed him. Leah asked, "So? What do you want? Do you need me to repay you?" Huang Feng, immortal monarch, asked, "If I offer you the opportunity to become an immortal class, would you take it? What are the conditions? After joining the immortal class, Sangtian will only grant you duties and divine power. I don't need you to do anything for me." The words of Huang Feng, immortal monarch, made Leah frown even more. Leah stared intently at Huang Feng, immortal monarch, as if trying to see through him. Huang Feng, immortal monarch, continued, "To be honest, choosing you wasn't because of your own opportunity, but because of the supporting Dao Sword Venerable. I think the supporting Dao Sword Venerable has a misunderstanding about the celestial court and the immortal gods. If there's no substantive conflict, I see no need to be enemies. If you become an immortal god and understand the celestial court, you would build a bridge between the celestial court and the supporting Dao Sword Venerable. In the future, a terrifying cataclysm will descend, sweeping across the 3,000 great worlds. We can face it together." Upon hearing him mention Guan, Li Ya's frown instead eased. Saying it like this, it seems true. Although he thinks highly of himself, he wouldn't truly think he could attract the attention of the immortal gods. Even though he doesn't know where the celestial court is, just hearing about it, he imagines it as an unimaginably powerful force. Leah asked, "If that's the case, why don't you just approach him directly? Can't you find him?" Huang Feng, immortal monarch, turned his head towards the horizon, speaking leisurely, "There is already an immortal god by his side, and sooner or later he will be told. As for finding you, it's just to deepen my sincerity." Leah thought for a moment and said, "Then can I talk to him first before coming to you?" Huang Feng, immortal monarch, looked at him, smiled, and softly said, "Of course, that's not a problem. Let me first take you to see the celestial court." As he finished speaking, he suddenly swung his sleeve, sweeping away Leah and the boy in coarse clothing, the three disappearing together from the grass. Far away on the Taizong continent, Guan did not stop what he was doing, continuing to pick medicinal herbs. Profound, mysterious Jinren followed beside him. After 500,000 years, he had completely mastered the demon god body, his cultivation reaching the Zizai immortal realm, with an even more terrifying physical strength. Guwen believed that even Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal was no match for him. Such progress is not exaggerated. After all, the demon god body is a great opportunity from the celestial court. Now when facing him, Guwen no longer hides behind a tiny masked figure but confronts with his true form. Profound mysterious Shinran followed beside Guwen, like a Taoist child, inquiring about his cultivation doubts. Guwen listened patiently, answering every question. After Guwen finished picking the ripe medicinal herbs, profound mysterious Shinran began sowing seeds. Guwen did not leave immediately but waited in the courtyard, his gaze on the row of stone statues in front of the courtyard wall, all of which were sword-venerate divine statues crafted by profound mysterious Shinran. When profound mysterious Shinran returned to the courtyard, Guwen spoke, "Why make these stone statues? I don't need faith, nor do I need people to always remember me." This was the truth. His cultivation to date was not reliant on the faith of the masses or worldly merits. They should remember. You don't need faith, but the world must not forget you. This is my selfish thought because I know this world isn't so important to you. If no one remembers you, there's no need for you to remain here. Profound mysterious Shinran spoke earnestly. The higher his cultivation level, the more he admired Guwen. Even with a Tao heart like his, he would yearn for the universe beyond, for other great thousand worlds, but Guwen could remain reclusive here and save the world multiple times. After hearing this, Guwen did not respond directly but smiled. "Your kin is about to ascend to immortality." "Kin? Do you mean Liya?" Profound mysterious Shinran asked with a frown. He already knew the relationship between Guwen and Liya. Back then, he marveled at Liya's luck. Although they share the surname Li, he and Liya were like strangers. In his view, without Guwen's help, neither he nor Liya could become immortals. There are immortal gods wooing him, trying to persuade him to become an immortal, supposedly to draw me in. Guwen spoke with a smile, lifting his eyes to the celestial vault, his gaze seemingly already locking onto Liya. Profound mysterious Shinran heard the implication in Guwen's words and asked, "Since it's a scheme, will you intervene?" Guwen calmly replied, "Let Liya see the celestial court first. He needs to make his own choice. Even if the other party's target is me, for him, it's a great opportunity rarely encountered in life." These words made profound mysterious Shinran deeply respectful. Compared to Guwen's broad-mindedness, the schemes of the heavenly court immortals were insignificant. The lord of the celestial court is lacking. It would be better to let the senior take charge. Profound mysterious Shinran looked at Guwen, thinking to himself. Above the sea of clouds, Huang Feng immortal monarch, Liya, and the boy in coarse clothing appeared out of thin air. The boy in coarse clothing collapsed directly onto the clouds. He was about to speak, but was captivated by the sight above. Following his gaze, the celestial vault was azure, and at the top of the celestial vault, one could see the cosmic starry sky, vast and boundless, giving a fantastical sense of being in a dream. Sir the Nelfire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The celestial vault merged seamlessly with the universe. Liya was also drawn by the magnificent scene above, feeling that the concentration of spiritual energy here far surpassed that of the celestial spirit great world. Cultivating here for a day might equal several months in the celestial spirit great world. Is this the celestial court? Huang Feng immortal monarch spoke. This is not the celestial court, but it leads to the celestial court. The celestial court is above all realms, and cannot be reached merely by traversing the universe. One must ascend the heavenly ascension stairs. In the celestial court, not all immortal gods can ascend the heavenly ascension stairs. The celestial spirit god who guards the celestial spirit great world has never stepped on the heavenly ascension stairs in his life. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 696, Heavenly Might. Heavenly Ascension Stairs. Leah looked up, searching for the heavenly ascension stairs that Huang Feng immortal monarch mentioned, but no matter which direction he looked, he couldn't find them. The cloth-clad youth was also searching for the heavenly ascension stairs. The celestial vault was boundless, the universe magnificent, its end unseen, and the sea of clouds beneath their feet equally vast, making them feel as insignificant as dust. After looking around, Leah couldn't help but ask, "Where are the heavenly ascension stairs? You can't have brought me here just to look at the sky, right?" Huang Feng immortal monarch smiled and said, "Usually, you can't glimpse the immortal signs of the celestial court, but today I will make an exception. You are about to witness something even a celestial god cannot comprehend." These words made Leah and the cloth-clad youth even more expectant. Huang Feng immortal monarch stepped forward, then lifted his robe, kneeling with one knee and raised both arms, chanting magic spells that Leah and his apprentice could not understand. Leah and the cloth-clad youth became even more anxious, looking up at the celestial vault, waiting for the heavenly ascension stairs to appear. CTH Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The sea of clouds ceased its surging, the celestial vault and the starry cosmos remained silent yet oppressive. As time passed, Leah and the cloth-clad youth gradually felt an overwhelming pressure, reminiscent of the celestial tribulation experienced during crossing the tribulation. Leah felt it most acutely, as none of the pressures he had faced during any celestial tribulation ever compared to the current heavenly pressure. Suddenly, a burst of golden light descended, illuminating Leah and the others, eyes wide open, mouths slightly agape. A streak of golden light quickly descended from the depths of the universe, rapidly enlarging, seemingly set to occupy the entire cosmos. Before Leah and the youth could ponder further, the golden light had already descended, turning into an incomparably majestic golden mountain, stretching countless miles long, its height unfathomable. The cloth-clad youth gazed upwards, pupils full of golden light. Even Leah was shocked, looking up in awe and spontaneously guessing how high this golden mountain might be. It seemed 1,000,000 zhang high. Placed in the celestial spirit great world, it would probably be visible even from outer heaven. Yet he had never seen such an enormous mountain, making him forget his worries for a moment, staring blankly at the golden mountain ahead. The golden mountain shone brightly, devoid of any vegetation, appearing like a heavenly wall across their path, and once it fell, its imposing aura grew, showing no end in sight on either side. Huang Feng immortal monarch slowly stood up, looking at the 1,000,000 zhang high golden mountain before him, eyes full of reverence. How could the heavenly ascension stairs? Leah took a deep breath, looked towards Huang Feng immortal monarch, opening his mouth to ask, yet before he could finish, another vast heavenly pressure descended, startling him to look up again. What he saw next was a scene he would never forget. One after another, golden mountains 1,000,000 zhang high fell from the top of the universe, stacking upon each other, shaking the heavens. Boom, 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 the entire world seemed to tremor, the sea of clouds roiling like molten waves. The cloth-clad youth gazed in shock at the celestial vault, body trembling incessantly, and Leah, though slightly better, was not much different. Golden mountains layered upon one another, rising continuously, forming a golden celestial staircase leading into the depths of the universe, each step 1,000,000 zhang high, exuding an insurmountable oppression, sacred and solemn. After a while, the disturbances in this world finally subsided. Huang Feng immortal monarch waved his sleeves, taking Leah and the cloth-clad youth to the distance, looking at the heavenly ascension stairs from millions of miles away. Even from such a distance, the heavenly ascension stairs still overwhelmed the eyes of Leah and his apprentice. From this vantage point, the heavenly ascension stairs seemed to have already broken out of the boundaries of this world, leading deep into the universe, unseen at the end, and Leah and the youth felt that just walking along these stairs would take them to the peak of the great Tao. The feeling was wondrous, yet the two inexplicably nurtured such a thought. The heavenly ascension stairs are not just tall, each step harbors immense heavenly pressure. To set foot on the first step, one must first reach the golden immortal Tao fruit realm, a realm far beyond your current reach. Only those in the immortal class have the opportunity to attain it. Huang Feng, immortal monarch, remarked with a tone of reflection. Although this was not his first sight of the heavenly ascension stairs, he could not help but marvel every time he saw them. The existence of the heavenly ascension stairs symbolized the insurmountable gap between the mortal and the immortal. Even someone like Huang Feng, immortal monarch, felt a sense of awe toward the heavenly Tao. Li Yi did not respond, still caught in the throes of shock. He could feel that every step of the heavenly ascension stairs encompassed the strongest true meaning of the great Tao, so much so that he felt an impulse to kneel and worship. The trembling cloth-clad youth couldn't withstand the heavenly pressure and knelt in the sea of clouds, eyes vacant. Li Yi turned his head towards Guan in the distance. Guan was watching him, yet in his eyes, Guan's figure was so blurred that he couldn't discern Guan's current expression. "Junior brother Gu, what just happened?" Li Yi couldn't help but ask. Upon pronouncing "Junior brother Gu," Li Xianyu's eyes widened, immediately turning towards Guan. "Everything that just occurred was real, not an illusion. I merely turned his death from reality into illusion. He is still alive." Guan replied, leaving Li Yi and Li Xianyu even more astonished. They couldn't possibly understand Guan's meaning, filling them with awe towards him. Such unimaginable techniques? What level of cultivation must it be to achieve such? Li Xianyu asked nervously, "Then, was that immortal god truly dead just now?" Hearing this, Li Yi also grew tense, awaiting Guan's answer. Guan, facing away from the heavenly ascension stairs, replied, "Immortal gods are immortal. Just now, he was only a projection." In reality, his summoning of the heavenly ascension stairs wasn't to showcase heavenly might to you but to summon a path for stronger existence to the human world. Stronger existence? Li Yi and Li Xianyu shivered involuntarily, instinctively looking towards the heavenly ascension stairs. At the top of the heavenly ascension stairs, leading to the end of the universe, a ball of white light had unknowingly appeared, slowly expanding. Their hearts raced, feeling a chilling sensation as if being watched by an unknown presence. "Supporting Tao Sword Venerable, since you know yet dare to come, who are you truly? Whom do you serve and what do you seek?" Huang Feng, immortal monarch's voice echoed, cold and foreboding, with killing intent engulfing the limitless cloud sea. Guan slowly turned around, facing the heavenly ascension stairs. At the top of the heavenly ascension stairs, within the dazzling white light, a figure descended. The million-zhang high stairs were like ordinary stone steps from the mortal world beneath his feet. He bathed in the strong light of the heavenly Tao, making it impossible to see his true form, yet merely his silhouette brought immense pressure to Li Yi and the others. Every step he took echoed with the terrifying momentum of a collapsing sky. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 698, Golden Crow Divine Sovereign. The heavenly Tao's brilliant light grew larger and larger, resembling the arrival of a bright sun. The mysterious figure descending from the peak of the heavenly ascension stairs moved neither fast nor slow, but his footsteps grew louder and louder, resounding like the trembling of the heavens and the earth. Li Yi and Li Xianyu raised their heads, their expressions dazed as they gazed at the figure on the heavenly ascension stairs. The true form of Huang Feng, immortal monarch, had already filled them with great despair, but compared to this figure, Huang Feng, immortal monarch, seemed insignificant. An overwhelming aura enveloped the entire world, causing the sea of clouds to come to a standstill. Boom, 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 the rumbling grew more intense. The mysterious figure's footsteps seemed to tread on the hearts of Li Yi and Li Xianyu, making their souls tremble in fear. Li Yi forced himself to hold his fears in check and looked towards Guan's back. Guan stood in front, facing the heavenly ascension stairs. His vague figure exuded an unshakable aura of steadiness, giving Liya some relief. Liya's emotions eased slightly, and he chose to trust in Guan. Guan dared to come, he must have confidence. As time passed, the figure on the heavenly ascension stairs grew larger and larger, so large that the celestial vault seemed cramped in comparison. At this moment, another figure appeared on the first step of the heavenly ascension stairs. It was none other than Huang Feng, immortal monarch. His figure, like that of a mortal, did not appear majestic. Standing on the first step of the heavenly ascension stairs, he looked insignificant, yet his aura was hard for Liya to ignore. As for Li Xianyu, his cultivation level was too low to even see Huang Feng, immortal monarch's form. He could only stare blankly at the arrival of the mysterious giant immortal. Supporting Dao Sword Venerable, the existence behind me is the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign, ranked among the supreme immortals of the Celestial Court, in charge of the celestial law, and able to represent heaven's will. Do you truly intend to defy the will of heaven? Huang Feng, immortal monarch's voice resounded, his tone solemn. Guan gazed at the figure of the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign. With the celestial destiny of the Celestial Court upon him, Guan couldn't perform lifespan detection on him but could sense his cultivation level. Late stage of Miaojin Daluo, immortal realm. The celestial destiny upon him was extremely thick, far surpassing that of Huang Feng, immortal monarch. Even if faced with the early stage of Dao extreme Daluo, immortal realm, it should still be difficult to extinguish him in a short time. Of course, he was by no means a match for a Dao extreme Daluo immortal either. After leaving the strong light of the heavenly Tao, the golden crow revealed its true form, enveloped in true sunfire, with a shape resembling a crow, its wings spanning millions of miles, as if bringing a sea of flames raining down from the celestial vault, unstoppable. Liya and Li Xianyu's faces changed drastically at this scene. Guan suddenly raised his hand, the Cyan Hong sword appearing out of thin air. Holding the sword, he slashed towards the sky. With one slash, the sword chi shot out like a bright moon, the true meaning of the 3,000 great Tao gathering upon the sword chi, causing numerous stars to appear behind it, as if a galaxy soared. Almost instantaneously, the sword chi collided with the golden crow. Boom! Dazzling light burst forth, the world lost its color, fierce winds crushed the sea of clouds, forcing Liya to channel all his mana to protect both himself and Li Xianyu. Even though Guan intentionally enveloped them with Tao intent, the powerful gusts of the great Tao still made their hearts race. The golden crow divine race stood lofty above. A pair of cold and terrifying eyes appeared on that face whose features were indistinct. He raised his hand, a roaring fire wave surged behind him, rolling like dragons. Outrageous! The golden crow divine sovereign's tone revealed extreme anger, and with this explosive shout, the sea of clouds beneath Guan and his companions dispersed directly. The terrifying true sun fire descended from the sky, dispelling the powerful light between heaven and earth. Liya looked up, witnessing an unbelievable sight, countless massive fire dragons coiling above the celestial vault. The golden crow divine sovereign stood among them, his golden armor blazing like the sun, his visage stern, his eyes continuously seeping with flame, without pupils. His red hair coiled beneath the divine crown, like an unrivaled divine king descending with overwhelming celestial might. Guan could sense a certain special power contained within those fire dragons, transformed from the celestial Tao destiny. Could this be the celestial law that Huang Feng, immortal monarch, mentioned? Miaojin Daluo, immortal realm perfection, no wonder you dare to oppose us. The eternal life venerable truly is a master of fine maneuvers. The golden crow divine sovereign's voice arose, causing Huang Feng, immortal monarch's face to change dramatically. He had guessed that Guan might be a Miaojin Daluo immortal, but hadn't expected him to have reached the perfection realm. Little did he know, this was Guan's disguise. For Guan, suppressing his cultivation level to Miaojin Daluo immortal realm perfection was enough to defeat the golden crow divine sovereign. Today, he intended to crush the golden crow divine sovereign's courage completely, so he would dare not trouble him again.